The wide road leading to the temple was decorated with huge statues, and gradually the young men gathered for an important ceremony. In this world, when a child turns 12 years old, he receives his talent in the temple. The ceremony was conducted by the head girl priest and handed out each of the children's life purpose. Mostly children received talents related to martial arts, because originally God considered people too weak and gave them abilities to resist demons. But now the monsters were no longer as dangerous as before, and more people received talents to advance civilization. Ravel had known about this practice for a long time and expected to still get something very useful. Ravel's girlfriend Anna thought he was a very smart guy, but he himself only liked to learn new things, and now it was his turn to approach the priest. Such an achievement surprised many people because it was one of the strongest talents, although the girl looked very cute and fragile to be like a warrior. One of the girl nuns asked Anna to follow her to the back room of the temple to talk about her talent. And then it was Ravel's turn, and to his surprise he received some strange talent called Diligence that he had never heard of before. The talent of Diligence made all the other kids laugh and upset the young boy, who didn't even realize what he could do with this strange ability. One of the boys named Carlo immediately started gloating and insulting Ravel, calling him a talentless loser who got the stupidest talent possible. Carlo himself was able to get the talent of a master swordsman and considered himself one of the most promising young men, because now he could become a great warrior. Carlo called himself a divine chosen one, and now he would be able to take the path of chivalry, and eventually he would become the best warrior. Such superiority over Ravel pleased Carlo, and he continued to boast. After the talent distribution ceremony was over, Ravel and Anna went back, and the boy asked his friend what she was talking about with the priest in the back room. But the girl pretended not to hear the question, and when they reached the settlement decided to eat something delicious. Ravel he immediately asked his mother's permission to cook something in the kitchen, and his mother of course allowed it. Ravel quickly managed to make sweet pancakes that looked very appetizing indeed. The girl was delighted with the tasty treat and then became sad. Anna explained to her best friend that very soon she would have to leave this place, because after receiving the talent everything had changed a lot. Ravel of course guessed that the girl should continue to develop in the Academy for Heroes. This place was the best academy in the kingdom of Tyria, and it was there that young people improved their skills. The academy, gathering the people with the best talents, brought up heroes, true defenders of the kingdom. At the ceremony in the main temple, the temple guards are always present and closely watch the work of the head priest. Special guards are responsible for preventing the escape of children with the best talents such as Anna's. Ravel was saddened by this news and asked the girl what she really wanted for herself. Anna realized that after acquiring such a super strong and masculine talent, she had no choice but to fulfill her destiny. And anyway, she should be proud of the ability she had gained and stop talking nonsense. Anna got too agitated and decided to stop this one immediately and leave. Ravel's father of course noticed the girl's strange behavior. Then he was surprised when he learned about the talent of the Dragon Knight and realized that Anna will now live in the Academy of Heroes. And now it is not clear why she is so upset, because for her destiny to become a hero of the kingdom. But the father was actually most surprised by the foolish talent of his son, although his mother thought that Diligence best describes Ravel's abilities. After all, the son made even ordinary pancakes very tasty. Ravel tried very hard to please his girlfriend, and that is why his pancakes turned out so delicious and soft. Ravel was surprised by his mother's words and wondered about his ability. Mom explained that talents are actually a real mystery, and when she got her talent as a baker, she thought that if she went to the capital and opened a bakery there, she would be a great success, because everyone needs bread. The father said, well, from today he will come home late, because he has to prepare for the battle before God, and they want to show a fight between children with fighting talents. Even the highest priest will come to see this performance, and so the head cook ordered to be attentive to every little detail. But Ravel only reacted nervously to all these stories, and so the parents didn't know what their son was thinking at this moment. In fact, the guy continued to worry about his received talent because even above the priest had never heard of Diligence. Ravel decided in that case to prove his usefulness to everyone and become worthy to be enrolled in the Academy of Heroes to be near Anna in the end. But in fact Ravel had very little time before the battle before God, and he did not know how exactly he should do to prove himself in the best way. After all, as his mother used to say, talents are a real mystery and must be solved. It was obvious that Diligence was not the ability he wanted to use to solve his problems, which meant that he needed to find out more information about this strange skill as soon as possible. Ravel wanted to get a wisdom skill or some kind of power skill that was beyond the human mind, and there were only two ways to get something like that. The first way to get wisdom was to go through many real battles and various quests. The second way to get this ability at birth and in the process of growing up only to improve wisdom and learn new opportunities. The skill wisdom provides the user with all sorts of knowledge, and it is not too efficient information. So if someone wants to know about something, it would be useful for him to have access to everything but hidden information. But in any case, it's just knowledge with which a person can only brag and bully other people, so Rero didn't really want to get this power. So now one should learn as much as possible about the ability of Diligence, and it was obvious that all Diligence would produce results. With the other talents, there was no reward for Diligence to grow and develop. The fact that Diligence was not rewarded with additional bonuses was bad, and it would be interesting to find out what exactly people with Diligence had done in the past. Rero continued to hope for the best, even though he realized that he would end up having a very difficult time. All these abilities can be compared to magic, and if it is quite easy to acquire magic when you know everything about it thanks to wisdom. But in reality, it turns out that magic isn't really enough. Rero realized that because he didn't have enough magic, he couldn't use it effectively. But there is still a way to increase his magic even if his acquired talent doesn't take it into account. Rero decided that it would be enough to visualize the power in his body and then try to let it out. And if he could feel all the magical power in his body, it would increase the upper limit of his ability. But as soon as Rero tried to do so, he felt a terrible pain that seized his consciousness. The pain was so intense that even a grown man could not withstand such an ordeal of exhaustion. And so failing to obtain a magical talent would make it almost impossible to use magic in the end. But Rero tried to hold back and bring this matter to an end to increase his magical ability as soon as possible. Testing his body over and over again, draining and restoring magic, Rero didn't even notice how several hours passed. This test was on the verge of death, and in the end the guy could not use any other magic. But still the result was achieved, and Rero was able to get the skill of super magic energy recovery. This news inspired the guy. He did not even expect to achieve such a result. Thanks to the skill of super recovery of magical energy, recovery rate increased significantly, and the conditions for acquiring this skill was to restore magic 10 times in a row from the moment of complete exhaustion. Previously, Rero had been able to obtain many skills using his wisdom, but he had never encountered this before and was now thinking about his next steps to increase his abilities. Rero thought about it and decided that it was hard for him to do all of this because of all the skill he had gained. But if that was the case, then it should be possible to achieve new results. Rero's muscular strength enhancement skill was able to increase his stamina and muscular strength for a while. In order to obtain it, one had to completely deplete magical powers and perform a lot of physical exercises. As it turned out, the conditions for achieving and obtaining the result differed from person to person, and that's why everyone should individually find out their own conditions for development. Rero thought hard about everything that was going on and realized that this was his essence of diligence. After all, gathering power and eventually transforming it into other skills is the ability of diligence. Rero decided that with this knowledge he could eventually defeat anyone. The next day, the young lad devoted the entire next day and was able to obtain the muscular strength enhancement skill, the magic manipulation skill, and fulfilled the conditions for body enhancement. In just one day, a great deal of new things had happened in his life. After resting for a while, Rero decided to check all his improvements and skills once again, as this was now his personal and most outstanding achievement in recent times. The conditions for obtaining body enhancement consisted of muscular strength and magical manipulation. Therefore, if he used wisdom to find the conditions for obtaining specific skills, he might be able to obtain other stronger skills more efficiently. The ability of magical manipulation seemed to be quite a versatile skill, and Rero decided to try to look for similar skills. His father noticed his son's strange behavior and wondered what was going on. He then offered to talk about it, but Rero did not expect to talk to his father at all and did not keep the drink in his mouth. Rero only now realized that if he could study and curb his skills, he would eventually attract the attention of the high priest. While his father was drying himself off after the unexpected shower, Rero had already decided to do everything possible to get back together with Anna and enroll in the Hero Academy. Meanwhile, the self-confident Carlo was demonstrating his skills as a master swordsman and had already managed to defeat several opponents at the organized special tournament. Meanwhile, the head priest was worried about Anna's condition, who complained about her poor health and was unable to demonstrate her Dragon Knight skill. Carlo was already able to become much stronger and was constantly calling for new opponents to fight him. Just at this moment, Rero appeared and expressed his desire to show off his fighting skills. This made Carlo really excited, who simply despised the loser Rero. Carlo began to insult Ravel again and advised him to get away immediately. One of the assistant priests reminded him that a fight before God is held only between those who have fighting talents, but the girl priest asked him not to make a fuss. Carlo was fully prepared to fight and turn his opponent into dust, for he had always hated Ravel. But of course things had long since changed and Ravel was not the same guy he used to be, and now he was ready to fight. Carlo, without waiting for the command to start the fight, rushed forward and started throwing powerful punches, showing all his anger and rage. But Ravel still managed to hold back the first onslaught and realized that it would be difficult to win. Carlo was a really strong fighter, and if someone else was in this situation, he would certainly lose. But Ravel knew what he was doing and tried to hold back his opponent's blows, which could easily crush him. The blows were coming at an incredible speed, and Ravel felt the huge difference between their talents and realized that even if he used his body enhancement, Carlo's attacks would still be superior to his blows. Carlo spilled even more and urged his opponent to fight back, because even the most untalented person should fight back. Especially if you just stand there and take the blows, this would not be considered a real fight but a beating. All those who watched this unusual fight raised an incredible noise and urged the leader of these competitions, Carl, as soon as possible to deal with another opponent. Not long before that, Ravel's father was surprised why his son wanted to see how he could wield his blade, but still decided to go to the meeting and show him some of the most ordinary techniques. Ravel didn't bother to explain and stated that he just needed it, and then apologized for his insistence and for distracting his father. Ravel also told his father to move as slowly as possible so that he could more clearly understand all the techniques of the movements. The father promised to slow down a little on purpose for his son and put up a small bar, making it a kind of target for a precise blow. Ravel hoped to use the skill of imitation that could be obtained when one was able to understand all the movements of a person with the help of another skill, enhanced vision. This skill allows the user to mimic the movements of any person, and the mimicking itself consumes magic power. After performing all the procedures of using the necessary skills, it was very easy to reproduce even the best martial artist, and now during the battle Ravel was ready to show this skill. By exactly replicating all of his father's moves, Ravel accomplished the impossible, and was able to achieve victory in the fight with Carlo. No one realized what kind of ball handling style this guy was using, but everyone was surprised. After his victory, Ravel asked for permission to enroll him in the Hero Academy. After all, his victory over the Master Swordsman should have guaranteed him the necessary skill and grade for admission. But the priest replied that it was simply impossible, and the Hero Academy was too important a place related to the dignity of God where there was no room for mere theory. Therefore, the talent of heroes defending this world must be perfect, and Ravel's talent is not suitable for it. Ravel was shocked by the refusal and felt very anxious, but he still apologized for such improper behavior. After that, the guy just turned around and decided to leave the place, and the head priest quietly told her assistants that these are the rules. However, these rules sometimes don't work fairly, because if you look closely at this guy, you will realize that he is a real mystery even to God, and maybe he has an incredible power in him. Then Ravel went to Anna's house to see her, but as it turned out, she had locked herself in her room and had to leave for the academy tomorrow. Ravel was not going to give up and asked his aunt to call the girl. She was very excited and surprised when she found out that Ravel was able to defeat Carl, even though he had no fighting talent. Then Anna admitted that she was very afraid of fighting with other people, because she couldn't even imagine hurting someone or injuring herself. The girl explained that she would very much like to remain a free person and live a peaceful life in this village with her best friend Ravel. The guy then explained that in Hero Academy there is a secondary class and a higher class. The secondary class is made up of people with the best talents, and the upper class is made up of so-called exceptions. And those who are confirmed by the academy can be accepted as true heroes. And since even Anna thinks Ravel is very cool, he should stay that way. Then Ravel promised that in just 3 years he would be strong enough to personally protect the Dragon Knight Anna and enter the Academy of Heroes. After all, if Anna can't live peacefully in the future, she won't have much free time. But in any case, Ravel wants to be at her side, and even though it's inconvenient, he'll always be there for her. Anna recalled how she cried too much and always cried a lot even when she was little. But always, even in the most difficult moments of her life, Ravel always came to her rescue, and his perfectly cooked pancakes made her happy. The sweet girl blushed a lot and finally wiped the tears from her face and confessed how much she liked Ravel. And now she realized it more than ever before, and now she knows the strength of her feelings. Ravel wanted to answer something at that moment, but the girl covered his mouth with her hand and advised him to answer her in 3 years, when he would be in the academy. Until then, she would try to become a better girl for Ravel. Their friendship lasted for many years, and even when people told Anna that Ravel was an ordinary child, she saw much more in him and treated him differently from everyone else. The girl always wanted to play with him, and Ravel immediately fell in love with her sweet smile. And now, when they stood on the threshold of changes in their lives, the girl offered to promise each other something important. As usual, childishly, they confirmed their promise to each other by crossing their fingers. Raul realized that even if this girl wasn't perfect, he was still willing to do a lot for the sake of always seeing her sweet smile. This he would definitely become strong enough and do everything so that she wouldn't have to fight and suffer in the future. Ravel realized that his skill of diligence would only exist for the sake of that smile. Ravel's father, named Aiden, teaches swordsmanship at the school, but he usually visits his students briefly, and after only saying a few words to them, he leaves the school to loiter somewhere. The substitute teachers never resented Aiden's carefree behavior because they all knew his true strength, which he tried to hide within himself. On a rainy gray morning, Anna decided to go to the Academy of Heroes, and all the villagers saw the talented girl off, wishing her the best. And only Ravel did not go to see this sad moment and was not going to see off his best friend with the others, because the drops of cool rain on his face hid tears of grief. Ravel explained to his father that he didn't want to waste his time and see Anna leave the village. Aiden, of course, understood how his son felt and decided that he really wanted to make every effort to attend the Hero Academy in the future. But in any case, his son was just a child, and it was surprising to see him so eager to enter the academy after his beloved. But if you only think about your favorite girl, it won't work out. Father explained that the power of superior talent is too high, and even if Ravel, with the help of imitation movements, can once again surprise the priest, that in any case then he will soon be expelled from the Academy of Heroes. Ravel was surprised at how easily his father had figured out his plans, for he had actually imitated his blade skills to try to get into the academy. Aiden explained to his son that he would never be able to achieve his goal if he continued to use such foolish tricks, and so he must experience the dangers. His father advised him to simply strive to become the strongest man in the world and to do his best. Aiden then led his son into a completely dark room and explained that they would now be doing something that was drastically different from his classes at the swordsmanship school. Ravel was surprised, for his father had not even brought a bamboo blade. But then Aiden created a bright magical flame and explained to his son that now would help him to get a very important and useful demonization skill, with which he could become much stronger in the future. The demonic flame looked absolutely incredible and seemed to burn without any visible source. Aiden advised him not to think about unnecessary things and try to concentrate and meditate with him. Through such manipulations, it would be possible to eventually gain the demonization skill. Ravel was surprised by such abilities of his father and took interest in everything that was going on. Aiden explained to your son, in fact there is another world that is much different from the usual, and it is inhabited by demons. But people can try and get the same power as them, and thanks to that they can improve the physical abilities of their bodies. Aiden also explained that even with the wisdom skill it is impossible to find detailed information about demonization, because it is too secret information. Ravel asked his father why he hadn't told anyone earlier about his powerful skill, but as it turned out his father hated everything demonic and tried not to use his abilities. Aiden was serious at that moment and said, "Thanks to such a powerful force can destroy a huge number of people, and therefore you cannot spread information about it." Looking closely at the demonic flame, Ravel felt a strong shiver in his body, and then pain. His father explained that the demonic flame is filled with energy with the help of magical elements in the air, and the vitality of the people around him, and therefore before this fire all the abilities of a person significantly deteriorate. Ravel had already realized this because the pain was getting worse and now he was screaming. Aiden said that this flame burns only half, and so he tried to improve it, because the demonic flame steals the magical energy hidden in his body, making him suffer from the depletion of magical energy. And many people who researched the monsters of the world of demons gave them a variety of names, and so the demon was a common name inscribed in the mythology of the ancient kingdoms. Based on the information from this mythology, it seems that demons live together like hell and torture dead criminals for their own pleasure. Therefore, in order to surpass the demons in power, one must overcome this hell on his own. Ravel at this point could not hold back and just lay on the ground in incredible pain. But his father continued to say that this was just the beginning and the main test was ahead of him. Ravel felt it hard to breathe, as if he was very deep underwater, and even using super restoration of magic power did not allow him to improve his condition. The depletion of magical power and fast recovery kept repeating itself and brought horrendous pain. Ravel was terrified of what was happening and completely lost the sense of time overcoming this very difficult ordeal. His father periodically asked if his son really wanted to become stronger. Even though he had defeated the strongest swordsman at the academy, Ravel knew that this would not be enough and he needed to maximize all of his abilities, because in the future he needed to become so strong that he could protect the Dragon Knight. Aiden looked at his son with satisfaction and noticed the change in his gaze, and then said that Ravel was now ready to learn many new things in his new life. But of course the boy's condition was terrible, and his father explained that it was impossible to achieve perfection in just one day, and that he should leave this room and get some rest. But despite his father's decision, Ravel said that he could continue to pass this test, and there was no need to be in such a hurry, though it seemed that his body was completely ruined by such a difficult ordeal. Ravel tried to put his thoughts together and find the right way out of this situation. That if he could use wisdom, he would definitely understand how to comprehend the demonic power. Although wisdom only helps to find the information the person is asking for and things related to it. Ravel was very surprised at the incredibly calm appearance of his father, who had no trouble at all being around the demonic flame. Ravel, unlike his father, felt a strong pressure from which his consciousness became hazy, and the sound of the flames grew. Then he began to hear the sound of rain hitting the roof and it became unbearable. Ravel remembered that moment when he and Anna were walking together in the rain and they were bored, because that day they couldn't play with the paper airplane and only hid from the rain under a huge tree. Ravel that day used his wisdom to create a beautiful paper airplane and finally offered his friend to play at home. But Anna unexpectedly took the paper airplane in her hands and unfolded it, and it gave the boyfriend a shock. Suddenly the girl quickly created a beautiful paper airplane out of a blank piece of paper and said that if circumstances changed then something else should be used. Anna offered her friend to try to launch the ship in the stream and play with it. Ravel was happy because his friend could solve any problem and always find an opportunity to play. That day, like many others, was filled with joy and fun because the best friends could play together and do not think about anything, enjoying each other. Ravel, experiencing difficulty breathing, decided that it was necessary to use magic power to normalize breathing, like the skill of magical manipulation that he obtained while practicing for the duel before God, and then managed to obtain a special skill called circulation of magical power. But Ravel was so immersed in obtaining the skill of imitation that he even forgot about its existence until now. With the skill of circulating magical power, the power will be able to circulate through the body at any desired time. This magical process in the body greatly increases physical ability and suppresses the level of magic power consumption. After it was obtained by mages, the amount of magic obtained from the same amount of magical power increases. To obtain this skill, one had to apply magical manipulation to activate the circulation in the body. All of these are increases in physical ability and are used to increase magical power. Ravel realized that if he could achieve this, he would be able to breathe even under these conditions. But to do so, he had to completely control the currents in his body. After a few minutes, the guy was still able to take control of his body and all the processes going on in it and gain the skill of magical circulation. But even this achievement was not enough, and Ravel realized that it was impossible to continue meditating, and he needed to understand his condition. It became obvious that normal breathing was not the main goal of this training, but circulation was what needed to be achieved. Although the almost unconscious state made it very worrying, Ravel still tried to cope with all the worries and once again tried to concentrate to meditate in front of the demonic fire, and now his breathing gradually normalized. The father, carefully watching his son, had already decided to end the meditation process in a rather unusual way and sharply exposed his blade. A lightning-fast and precise blow of the blade destroyed the magical flame and ended this meditation training. But this was only the beginning of the next test for the young boy. Now Ravel had to avoid his father's lunges and use all his agility to avoid the blade. It was obvious that in hell people scream and cry and suffer great agony for their deeds. But if you imagine yourself as a real demon and feel the power of the demonic world, you just have to laugh and enjoy the process of feeling like a strong person. Aiden continued to swing his blade vigorously without giving his son a second to rest. The battle dragged on for many hours and Ravel seemed to feel no fatigue at all. In the end, when morning came, the entire hut was completely destroyed and Ravel was finally able to acquire the skill of demonization, and now he handed his son a blade as his thanks. Aiden advised to continue gaining experience in real battles in the wilderness, as this is the only way to become even stronger. The sword was extremely strong and could be used to defeat any opponent. Ravel apologized to his mother for going on such a sudden trip. But his mother understood everything and only helped his son to pack his things. Ravel said goodbye and was ready to start a new journey. The boy thanked his parents for their care and promised that they would see each other again. His mother, of course, was worried about her child and hoped that he would be all right. After all, his talent was not meant for battles. Father remembered how long it had been since she had last visited the temple to prepare for battle before God. And even though the size of their home village was small, the local temple was quite large. Temples are the places where talents are voiced, and almost everywhere they look equally majestic. So obviously all people are very dependent on their talents. Aiden told how once he traveled the world and believed that there are some people who try harder than their talent allows. And at those times it only brought laughter and bewilderment. Aiden he eventually changed his mind, of course, because even his son was able to gain the skill of demonization too quickly, and perhaps he could have boundless power. The father then told his wife that their son was now out of their sight and tried to comfort the crying woman. From now on their son Ravel will meet many people and learn many new things, and one day maybe he will become the strongest man. So they must have faith in their son and hope that he will be alright. On a deserted road that was far away from populated areas, a wagon was rushing by. The girl was terrified of the situation because a huge and ferocious monster was trying to catch up with her. It seemed that death was inevitable, but fortunately for the girl, her passenger was a brave Ravel. The guy did not hesitate to grab his blade and rush towards the monster. The lightning-fast attack allowed the diligent Ravel to strike a precise blow and immediately cut off the monster's head. This was the kind of combat training his father had talked about. The girl was shocked by the courage and strength of the guy, because he was able to destroy a huge orc with one blow, so she decided to learn more about her savior. But Ravel was in a hurry and did not want to waste time talking. The girl advised him to look closely at his clothes, which were too dirty and stained with the orc's blood. But Ravel didn't worry about his appearance and didn't care about the foul odor. The girl offered to try on some new clothes, which turned out to be gorgeous, and as it turned out, it was her best merchandise. Then the stranger introduced herself as Lar and explained that she was a member of the Merchants Guild. Ravel was grateful for the gift, as Lar was thanking him for saving him from the monster. The merchant then decided to collect the trophies and explained that the orc horns could be sold at a high price, and thus it was easy to buy similar armor at any time. Then the girl explained that even if Ravel wanted to keep these horns, he would not be able to sell them in the future, because only illegals would buy demonic materials brought by someone who was not a member of the Merchant Guild. But Lar promised to take care of it, because killing a huge orc was a huge accomplishment. Ravel didn't really want to get into the details of the trade and decided to say goodbye to the girl, but Lar offered to give him a ride if he was going to the Gostiny town called Lifsel. Ravel thought it would really be nice to rest a bit during the carriage ride and try to learn new spells with the help of wisdom, and finally he accepted the beautiful merchant's offer. After a while, the mountain road led the travelers to the plain where the inn-town of Lifsel was located. To the boys' surprise, this town was not so small and surprised by its noisy inhabitants. An inn-town is a town that provides lodging for travelers and various merchants. And on the way to Labyrinth City, Flaper Ravel expected to pass through several similar cities, of course, to see many people on his way. The travelers here were as noisy as the inhabitants and were happy to share information and gossip. Usually they gathered in noisy taverns and discussed various rumors over a mug of cool strong beer. This time everyone was amazed at how a young boy was able to defeat a huge orc single-handedly and asked to tell about all the details that had happened during Ravel's journey. Ravel explained that in order to achieve such power one must first reach a state of magical exhaustion, and therefore the whole process takes a lot of time and effort. People listened with interest as the guy talked about his many physical exercises to strengthen his abs, as well as the hundreds of push-ups he did daily. Ravel explained in detail the methodology of his exercises to improve his physical condition. It's all very difficult to begin with, but then it becomes very familiar. Then Ravel asked to treat everything as a joke and told that his father has his own martial arts school where he had to train for real. But in spite of everything, people continued to listen to the young man's stories with interest. Suddenly the doors of the tavern opened abruptly and a strange man burst in and immediately became interested in the young man who had destroyed a huge orc on his own. Everyone present, of course, pointed a finger at Ravel, and the excited bald man immediately approached the guy and then began to immediately help him in an important matter. As it turned out, the man was concerned about the bloodthirsty bandits who had recently settled in the caves nearby. These vicious bandits have been ruthlessly stealing the city's resources and attacking its key suppliers. Therefore, if nothing is done, very soon the city will lose all of its important customers and become empty. The bald man was horrified by what was happening and kept saying that it was impossible to let this city decline. because then all the life of the locals will be destroyed and he urgently needs help. But Ravel, despite all the requests, decided to give up this idea and tried to explain to the man that in fact he was in a hurry, he was not interested in the problem of this city at all. Ravel suggested to destroy the bandits to think about hiring experienced mercenaries who could easily cope with this problem. But as it turned out, all the mercenaries were destroyed and the mayor of the city was very much hoping that the guy who was able to destroy the orc would help him. But then Laura intervened in the conversation and offered the guy a gold coin as a reward for killing bandits, as well as to provide a carriage drawn by a fast-footed horse, and then he can quickly get to his destination. Ravel knew that on one gold coin one could easily live for a month, and a good carriage with a fast horse would help to get to the right place quickly. But then the boy wondered why he was willing to pay such a high price. As it turned out, this hotel city was of great benefit to the merchants, and one gold coin would be a small price to pay to protect this beautiful, profitable city from bandits. Ravel finally understood the girl's motives and agreed to help in this difficult matter, though the young merchant certainly realized that one gold coin was too little for such a difficult task. Thanks to his wisdom skill, Ravel found information about other cases of bandit murders. Mostly bandits ambush their victims in groups and take them by surprise. This is all done because bandits have a low level of ability. These people are too modestly gifted and are discriminated against by society, so most of these people end up as bandits on the streets. Ravel even began to understand a little, because he had experienced this kind of attitude himself. Ravel decided not to think about the motives of the bandits, especially since they attack suddenly, and of course the bandits do not expect anyone to attack them. So it would be best to take advantage of the surprise effect and quietly defeat one bandit after another. Ravel decided that in this case it would be better not to use the blade, so as not to kill everyone. The bandits certainly did not expect that someone at night could attack them so unexpectedly, and the first of the bandits felt the force of Ravel's blow. Well, the bandit turned out to be a pretty strong guy and he tried to attack then. Ravel instantly dodged the blow and now he had a chance to test his body strengthening skills. Another kick crushed the powerful bandit, and as it turned out, this formidable guy was not as strong as he wanted to seem, and now he just collapsed to the ground. Gradually moving deeper into the cave filled with bandits, Ravel skillfully dealt with every enemy he encountered, and now he was fully confident in his strength and capabilities. It all seemed like the kind of training his father had told him about. As soon as Ravel thought he was able to destroy all the bandits, it was not so, and someone from the darkness threw a weapon at him. It was the leader of the gang, and he was clearly stronger than the rest of the bandits. The leader was a huge bandit and was furious that some young boy had managed to destroy his entire gang single-handedly and ruin all his future plans. But Ravel tried to explain that he didn't really kill anyone and only stunned the bandits. This surprised the ringleader, and he explained that if he continued to hold back, he would surely die. Ravel's fierce attack forced him to quickly change his location and dodge the crushing blow, but the ringleader had no intention of retreating. The ringleader's huge blade inspired fear, and Ravel realized that this guy had superhuman strength, as his muscles had increased several times in just a few seconds. The ringleader said that his talent is the best swordsman, and unlike other bandits, he got a talent that is on par with the Knights of the Royal Guard. Ravel was surprised and asked why the leader was doing these dirty deeds. But as it turned out, the owner of the talent of the best swordsman just liked it and had fun doing it. The leader told about how he worked hard and got stronger every day, but then he got bored with it. He had to do something else to have enough fun, and taking things and lives from other people was a lot of fun. Ravel called the bandit leader a real bastard, but the vicious bandit only laughed in response and promised to quickly destroy the insolent young man. The bandit leader began to strike a series of heavy blows and hoped he would quickly destroy his opponent, because no one could not withstand such blows before. But as it turned out, all his efforts were in vain, and the young boy Ravel was completely unharmed. Ravel nonchalantly tabled on the spot and called the bandit's technique too primitive. The ringleader was shocked, because there really wasn't a single scratch on his opponent, and the young lad was able to dodge all the blows. Ravel realized that he was being fought by a real swordsman, and his attacks were faster and more powerful than Carlo's. Ravel realized that his magical power and the effectiveness of the body enhancement skill had increased significantly. This meant that all his efforts were not in vain, and he was able to reach new heights. Previously, all people considered him to be an ordinary weakling, but now he was able to meet his expectations and was ready to continue to work hard and develop. Ravel was once again ready to endure a heavy series of blows from the bandit leader. But in the end, this was not to be allowed, and Ravel counterattacked the huge opponent with a series of heavy punches to the face. The bandit leader did not expect such a turn of events and felt the strength of the guy. Ravel's blows stunned the enemy and the fierce leader began to slowly fall to the ground. This surprised even the guy, because he did not count on such an easy victory. Ravel said that you cannot immediately fall after the first blow of the series and offered the bandit leader to gather his strength and get back on his feet to continue the battle. Suddenly, a girl appeared next to him and asked him what he would do when he got up. Already he again using a heavy series of blows. The appearance of the merchant Lar surprised the young man, and the girl praised Ravel for his mastery of destroying a whole gang of ferocious robbers. Ravel asked why the girl had come to this place, but Lar only laughed and reminded him that these bandits terrorized all the merchants and stole the most valuable things. Ravel only now realized what goals the cunning girl was pursuing, and she wanted to get to the treasures that were stored in this cave. Lar that the hotel city is a favorite haunt of all merchants, and therefore it would be good if all of them would be indebted to them. Every self-respecting merchant is willing to invest only in profitable businesses, and now her plan had worked even better than she had originally expected. Lar hoped to take advantage of the turmoil to recover an important item and used Ravel as bait. The girl began to scrutinize all the loot that was stored in the place and hoped to find the one item that was very important to her as soon as possible, and after a few minutes she succeeded. The joyful merchant showed her new friend a small wooden cage with a strange creature that looked like a small dragon. In the end, all the bandits who had threatened the town were caught and tied up and captured by the guards. Ravel received the promised gold coin and a fine young horse and carriage and now went to his next destination. And the girl Lar got what she wanted. But suddenly the little dragon ate a very rare and important ingredient, and that made the girl terrified. Ravel didn't understand why she was so worried though. The young boy tried to explain that the dragon was still too young and didn't know what it was doing. But the girl Lar kept explaining that this ingredient was extremely rare for the merchant guild and now she was in a difficult situation. She then explained that right after the mission a message came from the guild, and if she brought this ingredient she would immediately become a hero. But now this great chance was completely lost, because with that ingredient it was possible to make a real royal dish, and the next opportunity would only come 100 years later. Ravel of course wanted to solve this problem somehow and offered to buy the ingredient and settle the situation. But as it turned out, the price of this ingredient was no less than 5 platinum coins. And as everyone knew, 1 platinum coin was equal to 100 gold coins. Ravel was shocked by such a huge price, because to achieve this goal, he needed to destroy at least 500 similar gangster organizations. And it was unlikely that such a huge number of brigands could be found in the entire country. Lar thought about the guy's proposal and wanted to think of some way out. Then the cunning merchant suddenly offered to pay this debt with her body, but then seeing Ravel's frightened look she explained that it was not what he thought. In fact, the girl wanted Ravel to be her bodyguard and escort her to the city of Viminia. The city of Viminia is a trading city and it is quite large, well-developed trade. In this city there are a lot of trade guilds and merchants having their own stores. Such a journey should not be difficult, as this city is on the way to Ravel's destination, so he will move in the right direction. But the guy immediately decided to clarify that this job will be valued at 5 platinum coins. Well, the cunning merchant only explained that the members of her guild with a lot of weight are rich merchants. And lately the monsters have become much more dangerous and nothing like this has happened for years. So everyone just waits, watching the food spoil, unable to do anything until the situation is resolved and the monsters retreat to the wastelands. Lar said that this would be the perfect opportunity to suddenly appear and buy all the food that had accumulated and then sell it in Velsia City. After that, her popularity in the guild would greatly increase and she would be able to make a huge profit from this transaction. Ravel wasn't surprised at all because this girl could really find profit in any situation. Lar said with admiration that this is a huge money and investment in the distant future, because always when someone is losing, someone else can get a huge profit in this situation. Ravel listened to the girl carefully and decided that the negotiations could be finished. Lar and once again Poe asked if she could trust her own life to such a young man, and Ravel promised to do his best to protect her. He then explained that if he fought strong monsters he would become even stronger, and that fighting for his own protection was exactly what he wanted to do. Eventually the new friends shook hands, confirming the deal they had made. But then Lar explained that since Ravel was not a merchant, he should know that people without a submission contract could not enter a city with a monster, and unless he signed a submission contract, his dragon could be taken away by the guards, as it was an unregistered monster. And he said that he should have told her about it much earlier, but the girl just smiled and said that she had forgotten about it. Then she explained that that was why it was so hard to get into the city. Ravel asked if he could make this contract until they reached the city. Ravel asked the dragon if he wanted to do that, and the little monster nodded his head in approval, while an exasperated Lar decided that they had all gone mad. Then the companions continued their journey in the creaking wagon. This skill of subjugation is given only after the subjugation of the monster, and this useful skill can only be obtained when the talent is built into the system. Such conditions for acquiring the skill were usually written in the records of the sages, but Ravel wondered if the information from these records could be exactly correct, although of course everything would have to be checked. In the terms and conditions it says that you need to use telepathy to communicate with the monster, and therefore you must necessarily have the skill of telepathy to enter into a contract. At least that's what it says in the records of the sages. With telepathy one must activate the skill with one's own will to transfer divine power to both sides. To perform it properly and possess magical circulation one must fill one's body with magical energy, and then transfer it to another being. Ravel decided that perhaps those who had the original demon powers flowing through their veins could easily fulfill such conditions of the contract. But now, having understood all the conditions, one could certainly begin to act, and first of all one had to concentrate, although Ravel was not completely sure of success. But just at that moment Lar shouted, warning of the monster's attack. It all seemed like some crazy coincidence, and Ravel of course remembered the bandit invasion and didn't quite understand why this girl had decided to take such a dangerous path. Although Ravel understood that he was promised to be well paid for the escort, but no matter what, the cunning merchant herself was very skillful with the wagon, and the speed of the horse helped to get away from the chasing monsters. After the friends were able to get rid of the attention of the monsters, they decided to rest in the forest for a while. Ravel knew that there was only one day left to arrive in Viminia, and he needed to make a contract with the monster as soon as possible. The guy hoped to do it in time and fulfill all the conditions. Lar offered the guy to accompany her during the day, and at night to do the training to conclude the contract, although the girl did not understand why necessarily perform all these silly training. But Ravel asked to take his endeavors more seriously. The girl asked to clarify if she understood correctly that Ravel's final destination was the city of Flapara, and asked him to explain why he was trying so hard to protect this dragon. Lar was actually in a big hurry and didn't have time to ask the mayor why this dragon was so important and didn't know much. Ravel explained that he had once made a promise to protect this monster, which meant that he had to continue to keep his word. So if he can protect the monster by getting an important contract, then he will do it by all means. Ravel then asked the girl to elaborate on her motives, but the girl did not hear the question and only watched admiringly as Ravel made a fire with magic power. Lar was surprised and could not believe that the guy could have the power of monsters. Then the guy calmly inquired about their dinner tonight, because it was the last meal before arriving in the city. But Lar didn't think about the food anymore and asked the guy if he had magic. The merchant girl was truly delighted, because she had never met a man who could effectively wield magic and could fight with his bare hands. After all, Lar knew that only a person who was predisposed to it could activate magic. Ravel was much more forgiving, though, and thought that the skill of creating fire was a common and useful thing. Ravel explained that he tried hard and eventually learned how to do it, but it only made the girl laugh. Ravel asked if the girl thought he was only laughing at her, but Lar was still sure that Ravel had powerful skills and was hiding it. Then Ravel talked about Anna, who was the strongest fighter and had gotten an incredibly rare fighting skill, and could even defeat 100 guys by herself. Anna really marveled everyone in the Hero Academy with her fighting skills and was able to defeat all the enemies. Ravel explained that he promised to be much stronger than Anna and of course protect her at all costs, which means he must work even harder and become stronger as soon as possible. Lar felt a rush of jealousy and wanted to find out if that girl Anna was Ravel's lover. But the guy did not want to discuss this topic and hurried to make a contract with the monster. To begin with, Ravel wanted to try to combine his magical power and the power of the dragon, but it was not so easy. The magical wavelength and learned in each person and creature is different, and it needs to be changed. The closer the wavelength of magic, the higher the quality of that magic. In order to change the wavelength of magic, it was necessary to create a small stream of force to try to release through it the length of the desired size, and eventually the range of magic will expand as you learn. All of this could be called a magic flow uniting different beings. Trying to concentrate as much as possible on this process, Ravel tried to combine his magical powers with the magical power of the dragon and realized that the main thing at this moment was not to make a mistake. The small dragon at this moment began to shout strongly, and Ravel asked the monster not to interfere with him to create a telepathic connection. The main thing was to build a stable magical channel, and maybe it wasn't that difficult. In any case, it was important to try as hard as possible, and gradually the length of the magic wave increased. A few minutes ago, the guy felt the right connection with the monster. And as it turned out, it was the right moment, because the little dragon was not just shouting all this time, but warning the guy about the monster that was trying to attack him from behind. Ravel correctly perceived the warning and instantly reacted to the danger by jumping high and attacking the huge tentacle. Feeling the intense excitement, Ravel was really scared and didn't fully understand what he was dealing with. But it was clear that it was too early to relax and he had to fight. As it turned out, in front of him was a huge monster in the form of a tree, and Ravel decided that it would be effective to burn this monster. But the dragon asked him not to hurry because he heard the screams of the girl who had been captured by the tree monster. The little dragon asked to be untied so he could find the source of the river, and Ravel quickly cut the rope with his blade and the monster rushed towards the huge and bloodthirsty tree. The small dragon fearlessly rushed forward trying to find the merchant Lar. Ravel was pleased with his new pet who, as it turned out, was too quick to find the source of the screaming. Lar was indeed trapped by the monster and couldn't even move, which meant that Ravel was ready to rescue her immediately with his heavy-duty blade. Chopping branches wasn't that difficult. In the end, the huge wooden monster exploded after sustaining serious damage, scattering many branches and sharp splinters around it. The merchant Lar thanked the guy for her rescue, but Ravel explained that the little dragon also deserved praise, because it was he who found the girl among the many branches. This news surprised Lar. The girl gently stroked the little dragon and thanked him sincerely for his help. In response to this, the monster only began to make a quiet sound similar to the rumbling of a kitten. After a while, Ravel decided to follow through, and with the help of his telepathy skill, he signed a contract with his monster. After that, Ravel, already considering himself the rightful owner of the little dragon, decided to give it a good and appropriate name. Eventually, the benevolent dragon got the name Caillou, which he actually liked very much, and now it was possible to continue his journey. Still, Ravel was worried that he had completely missed the girl's disappearance and the attack of the already mostly monster, and so he needed to be much more careful in the future. Meanwhile, Lar remembered the words that she thought were a message from the god himself. Based on this message, Lar had to meet a man with a talent for diligence, who would help her to achieve incredible success. And when the girl met an unusual guy in the tavern after the sight she accidentally heard, she did not immediately believe in such a coincidence, because Ravel looked too weak. But watching how this guy used incredible abilities of blade wielding, as well as fire magic, and still managed to subdue the dragon, the girl's opinion changed greatly. And now there was no doubt that Ravel possessed the necessary skill of diligence. If God's words were to be believed, then this guy was the one who would be integral to her success. But how to do it right was still unclear. But at this moment, the goddess turned her attention to Ravel and tried to explain to him that his future path will not be easy, and therefore he will need to make a lot of effort, otherwise Anna will die. The young guy decided to visit Mr. Colta, but as it turned out, he has long been closed in his office and constantly read books related to black magic. And after receiving his talent, he tries to as soon as possible to achieve all the knowledge. Now there was no way to distract Mr. Colt and get him out of his office, because his aura was growing stronger and stronger by the second. Even more so, Colt-san had obtained the highest talent for a wizard and obtained the sage skill. With this great ability, one could learn anything and become a true encyclopedia of knowledge. Meanwhile, the friends had already managed to reach the trading city of Viminia, and plunged into the bustling world that reigned in this busy place. Lar immediately after their arrival went to the trading company, and told them about a good inn that provided rooms for good merchants. Then Ravel and his dragon Q, armed with a map, found the location of this inn and was surprised by the size of the city. There was a huge number of people everywhere, which made Ravel feel very bad and tried to find the shortest way to the inn. He managed to find a street with the least number of people on it, and that was the road he chose, though Q was worried that they might get lost in an unfamiliar place. But Ravel confidently went forward and soon saw strange girls in front of him, who were obviously local prostitutes, and patiently waited for a rich client. This was the local entertainment district, and the appearance of a strange young guy aroused the interest of the girls, who were used to seeing more rough and brutal guys. In this place you could find anything for those who liked gambling. Ravel and Q didn't like this place very much, and they both felt the scornful and greedy looks of the inhabitants, which of course frightened them. And of course, next to such girls were also those who guarded them. Evil bandits immediately paid attention to the young guy and wanted to know how much money he had with him. The evil guys were also attracted to the small dragon that could be sold for a good price. The bandits would feel like masters of this narrow street and hoped to deal with the young lad quickly, and then take the loot and sell it for good money. But of course Ravel did not agree with this decision of his enemies, and with a strong kick of his leg sent the first opponent into a knockout. As it turned out, on this narrow street is much easier to fight than on the open ground, and you do not need to catch your opponent. The local bandits of course did not want to retreat and continued to attack the young stranger, but all their attempts were unsuccessful. Ravel easily dodged the blows and finally suggested to his opponents to stop fighting while they could still stand on their own feet. Of course no one wanted to give up, and the bandits kept laughing at the cocky guy, although the local girls were of a different opinion and advised everyone to just calm down and not to fight anymore. But the bandits were ruthless people and attacked Ravel again. Just then a strange noise in the narrow and hidden street began to attract the attention of other passers-by. Ravel fought the brigands, masterfully rewarding them with supreme blows. Such diligence delighted one of the girls, who immediately wanted to thank the young man with his skillful seduction. But Ravel refused. Just at the moment when the grateful local girl pressed the young hero to her, another stranger appeared, who was attracted by the strange events in the alley. The wizard girl was perplexed by the way the weak were being abused here and promised to stop the violence immediately. Ravel tried to explain that he was the victim of the attack, but all the local people rushed away. Just at that moment, the wizard girl used a wind blast and literally destroyed everything in the alley that was within the range of her magic power. Ship realized that a magical area attack in such a narrow place would cause damage that would destroy all the local stores. So he tried to calm down and adjust the flow of magical energy and eventually unleash the same power. This was the time to recall all of his training. The young boy was sure that he would be able to extinguish this magic, and when it happened the girl sorceress was shocked, because the stranger was able to do it even without a special song. Then Ravel decided not to waste time and stopped the sorceress with restraining magic. But at that moment behind the young sorceress appeared an older man who urged Lana not to do it. The Lord reminded her not to use such magic in the city. The young sorceress has a strong sense of justice that clouds her judgment. As it turned out, it was the same Mr. Cult, owner of the incredible skill of wisdom and great knowledge hidden in ancient books. He was very surprised by the act of a young boy who was able to extinguish magic with his hand, which meant that he had a huge reserve of magical energy. Cult asked the boy to tell him his name, and Ravel said it without hesitation. Cult explained that if Ravel hadn't absorbed the magic, the damage could have been much greater. But Lana tried to explain that it was the young boy with the dragon who had first caused the scuffle here. But Ravel reminded her again that he was the one who had been attacked here. But Mr. Cult was not going to find out all the details of what had happened, and simply invited the young man to his mansion where he would receive a magnificent welcome. Ravel was speechless at such an offer. Then the boy reminded that he had no time at all and promised his friend to wait for him. But Mr. Cult replied that he was ready to receive a few guests if necessary, and right now they could go after the friend. As it turned out, Lar was not happy about this meeting with Mr. Cult, and Ravel immediately realized that they had known each other for a long time and perhaps something had happened between them. Mr. Cult's wagon looked to be of very high quality, and after a few minutes of travel they were there. Ravel assumed that this gentleman must be very rich. Lar explained that this gentleman's name is Cult Vaminia, and he is the heir of a wealthy family that founded this entire city in the past. That is why he boasts a lot of money. And after the guests were seated in a very spacious and bright room, Mr. Cult told how he had received a very interesting book, but he was concerned about its authenticity. Ravel asked if Mr. Cult would read the book. Cult replied that that was exactly what he was doing now. Such self-confidence made the girl laugh, who advised the master of the house to work on his abomination after receiving such a rare talent. Ravel didn't understand why a common peddler would behave so brazenly with the master of an entire estate. Lar explained that this man doesn't care about words, because he recognizes only magic, and even this book he got illegally, taking it in front of the merchant. Cult explained that if you follow human rules you will never reach the depths of magic. Lar suggested not to waste time and to go somewhere far away in search of magic. Ravel continued to resent the girl's behavior, but Lar paid no attention to it and asked the master of the manor why he didn't go to the Hero Academy after receiving the talent of a sage. Ravel realized that this man, like his girlfriend, had the highest talent. Lana explained that Mr. Cult was determined to study at the Heroes Academy after receiving the talent, but soon had to give up studying to study for the inheritance. Dominia is the most prosperous trading city of the Kingdom of Thuria, and the process of ancestral inheritance is under the protection of the state, and Cult's inheritance is very important for the development of the whole country. Cult told how his refusal to study of course did not want to accept, but still in the end went along with it. because in fact you cannot refuse to study at the Academy of Heroes. But Ravel didn't have much faith in this man. Larnu was still dissatisfied, did not understand why Colt did not continue to study at the academy if he was not going to become the heir before. And as it turned out, the estate master had found another reason for not studying. Mr. Colt then asked Ravel what coupon he had received. Ravel explained that he was only a wizard and it was thanks to his skill that he was able to extinguish Lana's magic. Colt praised the lad for such skill, as he had made it very easy to do the difficult one. In the end, Ravel still decided to answer the truth and explained that his original received talent was diligence. Hearing this, Mr. Colt strangely approached his guest, which frightened Ravel very much. As it turned out, Mr. Colt had long heard about the man who was to receive the talent of diligence. Mr. Colt told how on the night when he received his talent, a god spoke to him and told him about a man with the talent of diligence who would meet on his way, but only if he would not study at the Academy of Heroes. And this man with a talent for all of you would have to quench his thirst for the study of magic. Ravel listened carefully to the manor master and asked what he intended to do next. Mr. Colt said without hesitation that he would travel with Ravel, because together it would be much more effective to do research in the magical field. Ravel didn't quite understand what he was talking about, but in the end he agreed, because the help of such a talented sage was indispensable. Lar immediately intervened in the conversation and advised the master of the manor not to hurry, because she was also going to travel with Ravel. Ravel was surprised by the behavior of the merchant girl who did not want to travel with him, but Mr. Colt advised not to try to understand Lar, because she is a merchant and is ready to do anything for profit. Lar is not interested in the mysteries of magic and she does not appreciate people at all. If this cunning girl wanted to be around him, then she had some greedy motives. Lar blushed at that moment and wanted to justify herself, but it was impossible to think of something quickly. Ravel certainly understood that Ravel said the right words and his talent, and diligence is a great achievement, and together they will be able to accumulate enormous knowledge and wealth. That's what Lar wanted, but of course it was nice to be around such a guy. Ravel, seeing how worried Lar was, offered her to be together, and the guy recognized that magic is a very important thing. But to live by the rules is also very important, and everyone would benefit from having a great merchant around. And despite the fact that Lar is very greedy and cunning, but that's the way life is and you have to live to learn something new every day. Besides, Q also wants to be together with Lar and he likes her very much. Most of all, the little dragon liked it when the girl treated him to delicious almonds. Mr. Colt asked at that moment if Ravel was going to sell his pet, but Lar immediately said that she would not allow it, because Q was her true friend. Such words of the cunning merchant surprised everyone, because for her only money was always in the first place. But the sorceress Lana opposed the joint trip and considered it inadmissible for such a wise man to travel with strangers. After all, how it was possible to give up their legitimate inheritance and from the prospective study at the Academy of Heroes for the sake of such a dubious union. But Mr. Colt was adamant and asked Lana to take care of everything when he wasn't around. At that moment, the sorceress Lana felt a strong embarrassment and some influence of Colt's magical power, from which she instantly blushed and imagined herself naked. Colt asked the guests to apologize and explained that he had to leave for a while, although no one understood his true motives at that moment. Lana, on the other hand, continued to feel strange at this moment and remembered some events from the past. After the young sorceress finally came to her senses, she immediately declared her full support for Mr. Colt and promised to take care of everything. Ravel thought that the girl had undergone some kind of psychic attack, but Mr. Colt explained that he had merely pulled a thought from the girl's mind. And since it was always thought that heirs who did not want to inherit should leave their house, and this rule could be used in such a situation. Ravel already knew about how much psychic influence of magic affects the consciousness, and all these processes are very complicated. The boy then asked Colt if he was sure of his choice. Colt explained that the richer the manor owner and the trade guild became, the more disputes between them would arise. All this business with taxes and laws is too tedious and trivial, but Lana will be able to find a compromise, although she too can make mistakes. Lana is actually a good aristocrat, and when she patrols the streets she gets to know the locals and the life they live. Every day she learns and realizes that people don't want to live in poverty, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to find a way for people to live better. Colt clarifies that he belongs to the main family and Lana is from a younger branch, and unfortunately the stupid rules do not allow her to give way to the right to the main inheritance. And in general it would be great to never appear in this place. Ravel suggested that maybe it wouldn't be enough to just get Lana to do the wrong thing by the rules, and Mr. Colt agreed with that comment. Then Mr. Colt explained that in fact psychic magic is imposed on the whole mansion, and most importantly on all the people who are related to this family and can somehow interfere with the processes. Just at that moment the maids, radiating joy, reported that everything was ready for the beginning of the journey, and they had managed to collect the books on black magic that Mr. Colt had not yet had time to read. Such eagerness of the maids to please their beloved master surprised Ravel, and he called Colt a true master of psychic influence. But Colt only grinned in response and admitted that he had actually used mental attack for the first time and had recently read about such an effective method in a book. Lana, listening to this conversation, asked Mr. Colt if he wanted to use this psychic magic on her, but Colt only thoughtfully replied that she had no idea about it yet. Ravel realized that such an act by Colt was despicable but necessary. Ravel knew that diligence made him stronger and that it gave him pleasure and comfort. And diligence augmented by wisdom would of course achieve the ultimate goal. But now it is too early to relax, and while diligence is not rewarded and from the realization of how long the road ahead is dizzy, but Ravel is still determined to pass this test and receive the title of top talent. Mr. Colt, looking forward to the journey, suggested not wasting time and going together to a place where they can satisfy their interests, because together they will achieve a lot. Ravel reminded how strange his magic construction technique was and asked what Mr. Colt thought about it. As it turned out, among all the known theories of magical construction that Mr. Colt had managed to get acquainted with while reading books, he was able to learn something similar. Such abilities belonged to the lost magic that was mentioned only in very ancient legends. Mr. Colt was very interested in such rare abilities and asked Ravel to tell more about how he learned these skills. Ravel didn't even know that he possessed some lost magic and didn't understand how to explain it all, because he was just learning something new and he was good at it. The journey together, which began as soon as they left the city, was very interesting and joyful. The road they had chosen could be very dangerous, but the monsters they encountered could be an opportunity for training. But as long as there were no monsters, Colt and Raul were studying magic and exchanging their opinions. Lar and Lana also found common topics of conversation and shared their experiences from various life situations. Little Q was happy with such company and enjoyed the journey. But in spite of the friendly atmosphere, Lar often argued with Colt, and at these moments the situation became very heated, and it seemed that they were ready to destroy each other. But despite all the changes and different situations, the journey lasted for almost a week, and soon the noisy peddler announced that she could see a city ahead, which attracted the attention of the boys who continued to study magic. The city of Labyrinth was a great place of ascension, where desperate adventurers gathered and competed their skills to overcome various dangerous situations. The huge labyrinth that had suddenly appeared long ago and endlessly changing its shape, generating countless magical creatures, attracted the attention of various adventurers. One day, one such hero was the only one who could survive and return from the labyrinth, and after receiving a huge fortune he went home. In the vicinity of this dangerous labyrinth, a whole city appeared where the desperate adventurers gathered. Now Ravel could experience this atmosphere where one could become much stronger, just as his father had said. If you join the Explorers Guild and make your name famous, you can eventually fight dangerous monsters that you would never be able to face in normal life. But first, one must decide which guild to join. Lar promised to help in this matter and find any guild, but with the enrollment Ravel will have to deal with himself. But Colt advised not to believe Lar, because only he could tell the whole truth. But at that moment, a girl appeared nearby and offered to help him get into her guild, which is the most amazing of all. The girl's appearance was strange, and her long ears caused bewilderment, and Lar hurriedly refused the offer. Lar explained that guilds above the average level recruit scouts with special scouting abilities to fill out their membership, and traders or negotiators fall into this category. However, when you see that someone is so worried, it is clear that the child does not have the right abilities. But even such people are difficult to recruit, which means that this guild is very small. Therefore, it is best to choose a larger guild because there you can increase your power. But the girl with the long ears still insisted that the newcomers should choose her guild because it was the guild where people with the title of Master Swordsman came from. This only caused Mr. Colt to laugh, and Ravel decided that the title of Master Swordsman was not a bad prospect. But Lar advised him not to think that it was a good choice, as there were other ways to strengthen himself. Lar said that such a title is awarded to those who have mastered the art of swordsmanship to perfection, the best of the best soldiers of the heroic academy. That is, such people should definitely serve in the army. But the girl with long ears clarified, "You guild it does not depend on talent, and the guild conducts special training. Her glory is not an exaggeration at all. But unfortunately many applicants leave the guild because of such grueling training." Ravel still offered to visit the guild the strange stranger was talking about, but Lar reminded him that all the people had left the place and it was foolish to waste time. Colt called Ravel an idiot looking for trouble. Lar said that it was all a hoax and that the guild was too small, but Mr. Colt advised them to turn right. Soon they found themselves at the huge building of the guild and were surprised by its size. Mr. Colt was as surprised as the others and didn't understand how his premonition could have failed him in this situation. Lar was angry and didn't understand how a small guild could have such a huge building. But once inside the vast room, everyone was surprised by the emptiness and silence, and the girl with long ears instantly rushed to the lone man who turned out to be her father. The father was a rough and drunken bald man and decided that his daughter Ira again attracted new applicants and advised her to immediately calm down and do not forget what stupid things she had done before. Ira was outraged by her father's attitude and felt her face flush with color, because she was very embarrassed to hear the insult in front of strangers. Ravel, meanwhile, was trying to find some resemblance between father and daughter, for they were completely different. But then the bald father began to say that the number of new guild members had increased this year, but Ira reminded him that it was only because she was 12 years old. Mr. Colt was shocked and didn't understand what the hell was going on here. The father of the girl with long ears began to explain that all new applicants after the first difficulties hurry to leave the guild. After all, none of them even try to step outside their comfort zone and overcome the limits of strength. Then the bald, drunken man called Aiden's name and boasted of his great accomplishments during his training and dangerous trials. These words caused Ravel to hesitate. Colt of course noticed his friend's reaction and Ravel explained that it was his father's name. But still it was most likely a trivial coincidence. But the bald bonzo was interested in it despite his condition. With an incredibly deft movement of his hand, Bonzo somehow managed to take the young lad's blade and began to examine it with interest. And then of course recognized the patterns and designs on the guard. Ravel was shocked at such insolence and demanded the sword back. The young lad's indignation allowed the drunken guild master to revive his memories, and of course he recognized young Aiden and Ravel. Bonzo then laughed at the lad for his serious intentions. Then Bonzo still decided to clarify if this kid is really the son of Master Swordsman Aiden. Bonzo then confessed that he had learned about the boy from a single letter that Aiden had once sent him. All his friends were shocked by the revealed truth. No one expected that Ravel's father is actually a master swordsman who teaches in an ordinary village, which means that Ravel, in addition to his magical abilities, is a very strong fighter. Ira thought about future prospects, and Borzo continued to marvel at the unexpected visit of Aiden's son, for he had forgotten how long it had been since they had last seen each other. Borzo then continued the conversation and introduced his daughter, and then explained that he himself was a demon of the heavy sword and Aiden must have spoken of their friendship at least once. But this was the first time Ravel had heard of the bald, rough man, and Borzo was not offended at all, for it was similar to Aiden's behavior. Borzo told what an amazing guy Aiden was and he showed incredible strength. Borzo did not forget about his bottle despite the conversation, and periodically he continued to drink, and then he began to talk about Aiden's talents. But Ravel didn't know any details about his father. Borzo called Aiden the best student he had ever had, for during his training and practice he had shown incredible skill and strength, and sometimes it seemed as if the gods themselves had endowed him with such talents. Ravel of course knew that his father had long forgotten his talents, and it was in this way that Borzo wanted to motivate him to join his guild. Though such grueling hard training had proven detrimental to the guild itself, leaving it without apprentices. Colt explained that the decline was due to people not putting in the effort and training, and of course most of them just run away from the guild. Borzo agreed with this, but still proudly stated that his guild still existed. And now there are new opportunities, because the son of the great swordsman of Aiden came to them and he just has to repeat the feat of his father to pass all the training and join the guild. Borzo decided not to lose such an opportunity, and offered the guy to immediately engage in training and strengthening, because to get special swordsmanship techniques. But Ravel did not share such enthusiasm and proposed to postpone the first training for later, because he was interested in learning about other guilds in the city. This answer shocked Borzo and Ira. Ira asked him not to waste time on the other guilds, but Borzo was of a different opinion and advised him to thoroughly research the other guilds, because that was the only way he could realize that they were all worthless and that his guild was a better place. Ravel began to realize that those people who come to the city of Labyrinth want to get experience that in normal life they cannot get, and the missions that can be obtained small guilds are not good for this purpose. Ira meanwhile resented her father's behavior and couldn't believe that all her efforts were in vain. After all, she had worked very hard to invite at least some applicants. Colt advised them to leave quickly, because otherwise the girl with the long ears would not let them go. The next place the friends went to was the Red Wolf Guild. This place was more lively and apparently better attracted various adventurers. Once seated at a table, they all agreed that this guild headquarters was great and people spoke well of it. Apparently there are 4 scouts of rank and above here. As it turned out, there were many different ranks of scouts, and the higher the rank the stronger the monsters you could fight, and of course there were lucrative missions. The lowest ranks allowed you to do small errands, and the highest rank promised a battle with dangerous monsters that could destroy entire states. Colt decided that developing in this guild would be an excellent choice, although Lars sincerely sympathized with Ira, who was left without newcomers. Just at this moment, well and near there was a fight between guys who argued over their ranks and decided to find out who was stronger and more worthy of being called a strong scout. Then one guy named Ajito noticed the newcomers and asked if they really wanted to become members of this great guild. Colt decided that today was full of surprises, and Ravel knew felt a strange sensation at that moment, for the stranger's aura radiated an arrogance that he had met once before. Ajito thought the newcomer was just a boring guy who didn't know what to do with his life. Ajito then invited the guild guests to talk about their abilities, and the first to speak was Colt, who boasted about his wisdom skill. This impressed Ajito, and then Ravel talked about her talent of diligence. Ajito had never heard of such a talent before and decided that it would be best for the newcomers to go somewhere else since this guild was not suitable for them. Ravel realized that his intuition had not failed him and that this guy was really too arrogant. Ajito tried to explain that he was only interested in strong men and was ready to accept Colt, but the rest of the guild had to move on. Ravel realized that people like Carlo were best avoided altogether. But Colt called Ajito a pathetic person, because you can't judge the real strength of a person solely by his talent, but it's better to learn more about his achievements and other abilities. But Ajito was sure that a person's real strength was determined by his talent, and no matter how much a person tried to increase his strength through training, but any achievement is first determined by the quality of his talent. Mr. Colt tried to remain calm, but felt anger towards such a self-confident guy, and then asked him what kind of talent he had if he was so confident in his strength. Ajito proudly named his talent as a high-class swordsman and told him about his training at the Hero Academy. But this training he did not like the foolish attitude of the priests, and so in the guild he found his calling. And it was hard to argue with that, because every guild was really waiting for newcomers, but it was stupid to judge people who wanted to join a guild just based on their talent. Ajito had his own point of view, because in this city everything is determined by real strength, and the appearance of newcomers says that they are real weaklings and no one can defeat him even if they all attack together. Ravel still decided to get a cheeky guy and asked him what would happen if a weakling like him tried to defeat a great swordsman like Ajito, because that way he would dispel all his claims. Ajito felt rage at this moment. His eyes were bloodshot, because he wanted to destroy the man who dared to argue with him and show his superiority. Just at that moment, a cat girl appeared next to him and asked why Ajito was trying to argue with someone again, and then called him a common fool. Ravel and his friends watched in silence, not knowing what to expect from the members of this guild. This guild, which at first seemed very promising, was actually a collection of idiots who wanted to prove themselves at every opportunity. In the end, Ajito said that if the newcomers had already joined a guild, then they would soon meet at the newcomers tournament and everyone would know what they were capable of. Lar didn't know anything about such a tournament, but the cat girl Lissy said that in this city once a year there is a tournament for newcomers and it is a big event, and the winning participants greatly increase the prestige of their guilds. Ravel decided that Ajito wanted to compete there, but it only caused aggression in the experienced and irritable guy. Lar advised everyone to calm down a bit and lower the degree of hostility so as not to remain enemies. After the friends left the guild, they decided that it was a very terrible place, although they agreed that in this city power decides everything. But in any case, for personal development and increasing abilities, of course the Red Wolf Guild was the perfect place. Meanwhile, Ajito was eating a burger and was looking forward to competing with Sage in strength to prove his superiority once again. But Lizzie thought that one shouldn't be so cocky. Lizzie advised Ajito not to rely on his abilities too much, because he was still too stupid. Then she pointed to Ajito's stomach, where she could see a smooth cut on his clothes. Lizzie explained to Ajito that before he could bring his sword in front of Ravel's neck, he was ready to cut Ajito's stomach at any moment. That's why Ajito is a foolish novice who values his abilities too highly, but he should realize that true strength comes with skill, not when he wants it. Ravel was all words after all, for he truly thought he was the best fighter. Ravel meanwhile realized that if he won the rookie tournament, he could become famous and then he would get good assignments and access to any who such reasoning only caused his friends to laugh, who thought that such plans were too wise, although of course Colti decided that it was not a bad idea to make a name for himself in this city. But all the friends were unanimous in one thing, that after visiting the Red Wolf people they were left with an unpleasant feeling and they didn't want to return to this creepy and unpleasant place at all. In the end, all the friends returned to the empty guild where Borzo continued to drink. But before going inside, they all started to discuss the prospects and development and all the difficulties of training in this place. Colt didn't want to be physically strenuous, but his friends advised him to increase his strength through grueling training. Soon, the rookie tournament started in the main arena and the host of this show was the gorgeous Kana. This girl introduced a commentator named Sid from the Red Wolf Guild. Sid, as it turned out, was not an ordinary guy but an S-rank adventurer. Sid and Kana skillfully piqued the interest of the audience and offered to enjoy this great show. After a short interaction, the hosts announced the start of the first round and invited the first contestants. Of course, one of the first was the best swordsman of the Red Wolf, Vegito, and he was to fight with Ravel, who would try to show his strength with his talent of diligence. All the spectators were shocked by such stupidity, because how could a guy with the talent of diligence fight on equal terms with the best high-class swordsman? But Lars suggested that everyone shut up and watch the duel. Borzo watched the arena carefully and sincerely wanted to see Ravel win, although it was hard to believe it because his first opponent is the owner of the talent of the highest swordsmanship. Borzo wished Ravel to do his best to defeat and destroy his arrogant opponent. Just at that moment, the competition announcers announced the start of the duel. Quality speakers perfectly transmitted the voice of Sid and Kana, and all the spectators in the arena instantly fell silent and got ready to see a great fight between the rookies. A few weeks before the rookie tournament, namely on the first day of their stay in this city, the friends decided to throw a great party to celebrate their arrival. The food prepared tasted great and absolutely everyone at the table noted the high quality of the ingredients. Even Q's little dragon squealed happily, eating the most appetizing pieces of roasted meat. It was the first time Ira had ever seen such a monster, and Ravel explained that it was just a baby dragon and had a long way to grow. Ira was a naive girl and of course asked permission to hug Q. Once in the girl's arms, the baby dragon felt all the tenderness that Ira was capable of and eventually called her a very good person. Ravel was surprised at the monster's reaction, for he had never seen him so happy before. But Q kept saying that he was a great judge of people and knew exactly who was a good person. Meanwhile, Borzo, after drinking a few mugs of the usual lemonade, decided to talk to Lar. Bordo called this party too boring because there was not even good strong wine on the table. But Lar advised to think about the future and try to cut costs. Borzo, after a little thought, recognized that spending money on wine is too stupid. Although Lar couldn't become an adventurer, she was a very talented and useful merchant and could effectively impose cases and prevent bankruptcy. The girl decided to thoroughly check all the records and settle the documentation. As it turned out, Borzo had long ago ceased to be an adventurer because of a serious arm injury. But despite all the problems, Lar still asked Borzo and Ira to tell more about their talents. Ira, as it turned out, had a talent as a magical archer and was very proud of it. Ravel had never heard of it before, and Colt was not surprised at all. Ira explained that thanks to this talent she could shoot special magic bullets and it was very effective in long-range attacks. And her weapons are her favorite pistols. Colt asked Lar to evaluate these weapons and the girl called the pistols not too expensive goods. Ira admitted that unfortunately she could not buy something more expensive. Ravel, on the other hand, called these guns too bad for real combat. Ira suggested that they should undergo special training to control magic and then the pistols would not break. Lar agreed, because it would increase the chances of success. Ravel himself wanted to undergo special training to improve his agility and strength and to master the skill of the shooter. His friends supported the idea, and Colt even offered to discuss some options. Colt asked him to explain why Ravel wanted to become stronger, because he had already reached a high level of development. His friends immediately assumed that it was about a girl, and Ravel asked them not to make such theories. Then the guy told about his childhood friend Anna, who does not want to fight with anyone. And even though Anna always wanted to live a normal, quiet life, she still tried her best to get into the Elite Hero Academy. So in the end they had to part ways and hope that in the future they will be together. After enrolling in the Hero Academy, Anna would be accepted into the army and become a defender of the people. Ravel promised to become stronger to protect Anna. The boy confessed that he just wanted to keep Anna safe from horrible battles. Such motives of Ravel impressed his friends. The girls were delighted and genuinely envious of Anna, who was honored with such attention from a hard-working guy. It was the first time Ravel told about his true goal. But Raul was full of optimism and proposed to start special training immediately. All his friends supported the idea and sincerely wanted to make Ravel the strongest sword master. Now after a few weeks it was time to put his new abilities to the test. Vegito, despite his self-confidence, was a strong opponent and promised to show everything he had learned since their last meeting in the Red Wolf Guild. Ravel decided that it was all about Vegito's new clothes and his fight with lies was just a trivial trick. Ravel did not reveal his plans and only advised his opponent to be careful. But Vegito admitted that he didn't care about his reputation and it was important for him to win the fight. And so he should not waste time and stop this foolish talk as soon as possible. Vegito was hungry for a quick victory and glory, so he rushed into the attack with lightning speed. But such a move was too predictable and Ravel was ready for it. Ravel promised to show no mercy this time and fight at full strength, but that was exactly what Vegito was hoping for. And then he reminded him that in this arena, people won't die even if they are injured. The largest arena uses top-level magic, and so the damage received would never be fatal to the participants. But when the participants' life energy reaches 0, they are considered to be defeated. Thanks to such conditions, all the participants of the tournament could fight in any way they wanted without worrying about their lives at all. The spectators in the stands were delighted with the spectacle, and opinion was divided in the end. Many made Vegito win, but there were also those who were worried about Ravel, although his chances were estimated much lower. The battle in the arena against Vegito reminded Ravel of those distant days when he trained with his father in his home village. All of this might have helped him get into the Hero Academy, but now it was no longer necessary to mimic his father's moves. After only a few minutes, Vegito realized that his opponent was not as simple a guy as he seemed at first, and Ravel promised to show everything he had learned. Ravel really didn't waste time before the tournament and practiced thoroughly under the supervision of his friends. Of course, Borzo was in charge of the whole process and trained Ravel just as ruthlessly as his father, but it was very effective. Lar, meanwhile, was bored with the dragon, watching everything. Borzo kept reminding her that it was important to stay focused in any situation and of course not to lose caution, so running was a great exercise to train strength and stamina. With each step Ravel felt a strong resistance because the magic of gravity that Borzo used was incredibly strong. Ravel could not resist it. Ravel remembered the time when Borzo easily took possession of his weapon, and it could only be with the help of such gravity magic. The training was really incredibly difficult and Yura couldn't stand the strain. Lar at this point was glad that she had chosen a completely different path of a merchant for herself. But Ravel was not going to give up and continued to move forward using all his magical power, although it was not easy, and if not for his diligence, he would have ended up just like Yura. Borzo saw how serious the boy was and mentally praised him. But still it wasn't enough and Ravel eventually lost control of his body and collapsed to the ground. Lar was concerned and asked if he was alright. Ravel could defy gravity using his magic and could easily increase his strength up to a certain threshold. But alas, his body could not quickly adapt to such a drastic change. His control skills were insufficient and it was a real challenge for Ravel to stay focused for long, and now he had to start all over again. But unlike Ravel, Mr. Colt kept moving and such incredible concentration was worthy of special praise. It was obvious that Colt was countering Borzo's gravitational magic with magic of similar strength, and such a method could only be used by the most powerful wizards. Colt noticed Ravel's confusion and stated that he could not protect Anna that way. Colt suggested thinking about what would happen if Borzo attacked Anna and how Ravel could help her. Borzo realized that Colt wanted to motivate the guy, but asked him not to make a villain out of him. This method was effective and Ravel quickly pulled himself together. These words of Colt gave strength to Ravel and now he felt more motivated during the fight with Vegito. The spectators in the arena did not understand why all the attacks of the magnificent Vegito did not reach the target. Everyone of course considered Vegito to be the best swordsman who not only mastered the blade, but also a great hunter. Therefore, his opponents would always be at a disadvantage. But it wasn't like that, and now Vegito was experiencing difficulties and didn't understand why he couldn't reach his goal. Vegito was losing patience and concentration and wanted to end this strange fight as soon as possible. But that was exactly what Ravel wanted, because he wanted to reach the moment when his opponent would lose his balance and would be powerless to counterattack. Lar and Borzo watched with interest as their friend perfectly coped with the task, and all this thanks to special training. This method was originally used to fight monsters, but Vegito is not different from monsters, and so the strategy chosen for the fight is perfect. But Lar was still worried about her friend. Ravel was perfectly dodging and moving constantly, making counterattacks against his opponent. The guy felt his body becoming more and more flexible thanks to the reinforcement magic. It was obvious to everyone that by doing so the worldling could perform attacks at will while saving magical energy, which meant his attacks were unpredictable. Everyone was delighted with the show they had seen, for Ravel's masterful use of his life and magical power commanded respect. And all this was only possible because of his magnificent talent of diligence. Sid and Kana skillfully commented on the fight and didn't understand why their prediction for the fight didn't come true, and why Agito wasn't doing well. Especially Agito was not getting more damage with every second and was close to defeat. But Agito had been losing all his life and hoping for victory, and now he was ready to fight until the very end, even though in reality it could have resulted in death. Agito praised his opponent for his determination to get to victory so deftly, and such a strategy of gradual strikes brings results. Ravel asked his opponent if he was embarrassed to be defeated by a newcomer like him. Agito agreed that it was really very stupid, but it was not the final fight and no one was going to give up. But Ravel already felt his superiority. Video opponent has already completely lost concentration, and now it remains only to inflict critical damage to him to gain his first victory in this fight. Agito really wasn't as attentive as before and missed a back kick. The blow to the back of his head was indeed unexpected for Agito, and the top swordsman only felt a strong jolt. And the crowd of spectators in the arena were shocked by what they saw. Everyone immediately realized that it was a manifestation of strong magic. No one actually noticed how the fireball instantly appeared, and such a creative approach to battle was effective. Agito was enraged by such a thing and thirsty together. In order to create enough space to use this attack, one had to prepare in advance, and Ravel very skillfully led his opponents astray by forcing him to keep a great distance. Ravel decided not to waste such a good opportunity, and Agito realized that it would be very hard for them now since the opponent was going to attack. Ravel really prepared his strongest punch and maximized his body. The young guy wanted to become stronger to fulfill his main goal, and now winning this fight could be an important step for him. In the end, Ravel tried to deliver a devastating blow and brought his opponent's vitality level to 0, which caused a strong reaction from the audience in the stands. The tournament hosts announced the end of the fight, and everyone was shocked at how quickly the guild's best swordsman lost to the Red Wolf. Lar was as thrilled with the show as the rest of her friends. Everyone finally recognized Ravel's superiority over the best fighter, and now he was the future favorite for the second round of the competition. But unfortunately, Ravel felt his magical energy was at a critically low level. Ravel was still able to recover quickly enough, and his second opponent was Oscar, the elite swordsman from the Crown Sword Guild. But he was also defeated. His opponent in the third round was Axe Warrior Gold from the Flying Axe Guild. After winning his first bout against the best swordsman, Ravel's reputation had increased considerably, and he was now looking forward to his fourth bout on his way to becoming champion. The achievements of this young guy were highly appreciated by all the spectators, because initially no one considered Ravel as a normal contender for at least one victory, but he was able to prove his strength through diligence. This time the opponent for Ravel turned out to be a charming and amazing magical huntress who did not get in the past districts not a single scratch, and of course it was Ira. Everyone was expecting the magnificent performance that could take place in this confrontation. Especially the appearance of a beautiful girl with 2 pistols inspired hope for Ravel's defeat. Ira said that it would be very difficult to fight against a long-range weapon at once, and therefore Ravel should try very hard. But the guy was ready for another challenge, and the hosts announced the start of the fight. A week ago in the Red Wolf Guild, Ira was outraged at how her favorite pistols broke during the shooting, and Lar explained that they couldn't handle the bullets loaded with magic because they were of very poor quality. Ravel was worried about the girl. I was worried she might get hurt when the pistols exploded, and in the end he suggested to postpone the training, citing his bad as premonition. Lar offered to order new pistols, but Ira knew that weapons from other countries were very expensive and would cost about 100 gold coins. The exploded pistols were given to her by her father, and they were created by a foreign craftsman. Then Lar offered to try to repair them, but Ira explained that no one would do it because it would cost too much magic. In the end, Ira decided that she had no other option but to win the beginners tournament, and then she could earn the necessary amount of money to buy good and quality pistols. But still, the young huntress was afraid and realized that she could lose even in her first fight. Lar asked Ravel to explain to Ira that other options could be considered. In the end, Ravel said that he could try to create revolvers with his magic and solve this problem. Making guns is a lot like cooking a meal from a recipe in a cookbook, but it requires ingredients and expensive material. Lar thought the idea was silly and asked Colt to intervene in the situation. Ravel of course realized that he didn't have any detailed instructions for making pistols, but in this case it was possible to improvise and invent other weapons. The main thing was to get magical iron. As it turned out, Lar had a small stockpile and it should be enough, but she didn't want to give it away for free. Then Ravel looked at the piece of magic iron with interest and decided not to waste time, because it was his first experience in creating weapons. Alchemy skills were going to help in this situation. The girls watched the process and Ravel looked at the effect of the girls with pistols and decided to create the same paired pistols, and Ira agreed. First, Ravel decided to create a barrel, then to attach a handle to it to the rear part, and at the end to do the sight and bend. Ira was delighted and considered Ravel to be a true master at creating weapons. The merchant Lar tried for a long time to understand what kind of magic the young industrious fellow used, and finally Ravel explained that it was a science called alchemy. Mr. Colt was also fascinated by Ravel's ability to alter magical metal. In fact, if one was smart enough, he could easily see the similarities between magic and alchemy. Lar assumed that in such a case the ordinary blacksmiths must have their own talent, and if necessary Colt could easily learn the tricks of the trade with the help of his incredible wisdom. Colt certainly had no doubts about his abilities and eventually interfered in the process, much to the consternation of Ravel, who was concentrating on his work. The magic metal turned out to be much stronger than Ravel had anticipated, for his magical powers were not enough to complete the process completely. Ira thought that perhaps nothing would come of this idea, but still hoped for success. The huntress praised Ravel for his determination, for she didn't even expect him to be able to create a weapon and was worried when her pistols broke down. Just at that moment, the guild leader of the Red Wolf Guild, Borzo, appeared and asked what was going on. Lar talked about how Ravel was trying to create new weapons for Ira. Borzo praised the guy and called him a good son of his illustrious father, and eventually, after a while, the girl hunter was already testing her new weapon. Now it was time to test her magnificent pistols at the tournament. Girl planned to keep a long distance with the opponent to be safe. Ravel also realized that if he didn't move very fast the bullets would eventually catch up with him, and so he tried to rapidly approach Ira. It was a great moment and the Kana anchor yelled that the bullets were getting closer and closer to the guy. Ravel had already learned this strategy of the girl well during their training together, and so he hoped to find a weak spot in the defense and take advantage of it. Maneuvering as fast as possible, Ravel managed to avoid the magic bullets, and as soon as he was near the girl he gave her a strong blow from which she dropped her pistols. The noise of the crowd once again began to echo far beyond the arena, and Ravel held on for another victory. But then the unforeseen happened and the young lad refused to deliver the very last blow. Host Kana was perplexed and kept shouting into the microphone. Ira also did not understand the guy's motives, as she had completely lost and was in a hopeless situation. But Ravel was of a different opinion, and he stated that Ira could fight much better, and she just needed to choose a different method to wield the magic pistols. And even after losing her weapon, she still possesses the techniques her father taught her, so she should be ready for any situation and not give up even if her weapon is completely broken or lost. Ira of course understood all this herself, but she was very scared to fight and felt tears filling her eyes. The girl explained that unfortunately she was not that confident and it was hard to understand. Ravel admitted that sometimes he also feels fear, and he is not that self-confident and nothing ever happens just by his wish, but in any case he always tries his best to reach the goal. So Ira should be more careful about what she wants and should never give up even in the most critical situations. Especially she is looked at by her father, who tried to teach her the best method of fighting. Meanwhile, Lissy noticed Agito, who looked pensive after his defeat in the tournament. Agito explained that he was still evaluating his fight with Ravel so that he would not make the same mistakes in the future. Lissy was a very cunning girl and took genuine pleasure when she reminded the guy of his defeat. Agito could hardly contain his emotions and confessed that he had never been able to handle his opponent. Lizzie explained that Ravel had prepared for the fight very well and understood Agito's style, which is why he was able to win so easily. And it was all thanks to his talent and diligence. Agito was angry and constantly remembered those moments of the fight and promised never to lose again, and to do his best to become stronger in the future. Lizzie looked at her friend with interest, but realized that people don't really regret when they realize that not all talents are equal on the subject, because ordinary diligence turned into incredible strength. And in any case, diligence is the foundation for Ravel's development, and it's the mysterious guy who is doing a great job. Meanwhile, in the arena, Ira really decided not to give up and heed Ravel's words. The girl hunter wiped her tears, felt rage, and attacked the enemy. The ship was pleased with the result and dodged the blow, but the girl continued to attack and move quickly. This turn of events was enjoyed by the spectators and the noise reached its maximum. Ira was able to push her opponents aside and eventually got to her pistols and started sending a barrage of magic bullets at Ravel again. The can's presenter was ecstatic and screamed with her voice breaking, and Borzo felt proud of his daughter. The bullets were flying at an incredible speed, but the Whirlor continued to skillfully repel them with his blade. The girl continued to stick to her tactics and keep a safe distance, but it was a well-known trick. It was with the help of such tactics that Ira had won during their first duel, and Ravel already understood how he should act. The young huntress hoped for success, though the treacherous feeling of fear was once again making itself felt. Well, this time Ira did not want to give up and still decided to surprise his opponent with a sudden shot. Ravel was only able to sidestep at the last moment and avoid critical damage. But then something happened that no one expected. Ira felt a lot of pain. Host said that the girl was under the influence of strong magic because that was the only way to explain her sudden drop in vitality. Can masterfully commented on Ravel's every move and now told the audience that soon the guy would get closer to his rival and would have to win another victory. But as soon as the young guy approached the girl, Ira sharply put his hand forward and tried to shoot. Nobody expected such a thing, and the hosts of the show decided that the girl was just pretending to deceive her opponent. Ira really originally intended to deceive Ravel and pretend as if she had lost all her strength and concentration. But now she was in a more favorable position and was ready to deliver the final blow. As it turned out, Ravel really believed in this tricky trick, because the girl very often fainted during their joint trainings. But now it was different, and now the guy was on target. But as soon as the finger of a fragile hand pressed the trigger, there was disappointment, because there was no shot. Ira was shocked, but realized that such a treacherous sound she had already heard. In just a second, the girl realized that Ravel had used alchemy again and had somehow changed the design of the guns so that they were not filled with magical energy. But this time the girl was ready to fight even with her bare hands. But Ravel was much faster than the girl and had already managed to strike a critical blow with her blade. The crowd of onlookers exploded with joy and the shouts spread throughout the city, and Ira finally realized that she had no chance to win this battle. But despite her defeat, the girl promised that next time she would definitely win. But for that she would have to become stronger. Ravel was satisfied with the result and promised to wait for a rematch. Then the opponents shook hands and the voice of the can host announced the end of the fight between the members of the same guild, which was won by Ravel, the magnificent fighter. Despite the general excitement, Mr. Colt was much more reserved and tried to hide his emotions. He was a bit disgusted that Ravel was able to reach such a level of skill and friendship with the girl. In fact, the self-confident and rather egotistical Mr. Colt considered all these friendships as a real nonsense that only hindered the achievement of the goal. One day the maid found a book about Colt's father's skill in a garbage can, but Colt indifferently replied that he had already read the book. The boy declared that he did not need the book anymore, for he had already memorized everything perfectly. The maid continued to be indignant, for in her opinion, in any case, another important book should not have been thrown away. At the same time, she advised the young master not to waste time on chatter and better to practice magic. But Colt was unwilling to do what he didn't like. The host Kana announced the start of the final round, where the contestants that no one had expected to be here before would compete. Everyone was excited and eager to find out the winner. The crowd in the stands screamed and the host called for cheers for the finalists of this great tournament. Kana also advised to stay tuned and not to miss this important match. The finalists of the rookie tournament were of course Colt with the talent of Sage and the audience favorite unrivaled rookie Ravel with the talent of Diligence, who had already proven his strength. Mr. Colt was surprised to see no weapons in his opponent's hands, and Ravel was confident in his decision. It remained to be seen who would prove to be the stronger of the two. Ravel declared his desire to become the strongest man in the world, and for that he simply had to defeat such a strong sage as Colt. Especially for the sake of this, he has been training very long and hard. The can's host suggested that Ravel plans to use only magical abilities in this fight. And if that was the case, it would be a great fight. But Colt felt confident and wasn't going to give up. Ravel's confidence made Colt laugh, but he praised his opponent for his skill in speaking, because it's funny and entertaining. But Colt decided not to waste time and used the magic spell Fire Arrow, and then attacked his opponent. Colt waited with interest to see what Ravel would do in this situation. This magic attack was quite expected, and Ravel masterfully avoided critical damage and tried to neutralize his opponent's magic. The host Kana cried out excitedly that she didn't understand where the magic flame could have disappeared to. Colt meanwhile realized that Ravel had used wind magic to increase the flame streams and eventually managed to blow them out. Mr. Colt, despite the look from his opponent, called him a good wizard, but at the same time he remains a pathetic person. Ravel did not react to such provocation and continued to wait for another attack. Colt tried to explain to his rival comrade that all his aspirations in life are absolutely stupid and useless, because only a real idiot would strive all his life to protect someone. But if you combine his knowledge of modern magic and Ravel's understanding of ancient spells, then they together could achieve everything they wanted. This they must sacrifice useless things. But Ravel was not willing to give up his goal of becoming the strongest man in this world. After all, his desires and friends were not useless, and he was ready to prove it to Colt. This answer, of course, did not satisfy the great sage, and he promised to never give up and never again waste his time on useless people like Ravel. That's why Colt wanted to defeat Ravel, to prove how much he was wrong in his life, because only after losing would he realize that his path was leading to a useless goal. The great sage's next attack was as sudden as the first, but Ravel managed to avoid the critical damage and jumped aside, but this only amused the cocky Colt. Gradually, the tempo of the fight began to increase rapidly, and all the spectators in the arena were waiting for some turning point, but despite the active use of magic spells, none of the opponents had gained an advantage yet. The host Kana was shocked, because this battle was not like a battle of ordinary beginners. Sid agreed with this remark, for this level of magical ability was only available to very experienced adventurers. But gradually Ravel could feel the tension building and a slight fatigue. He realized that his opponent was still creating high-level magic spells, and there was no telling how much his strength would last. Sage Colt's unlimited supply of magical energy allows him to attack without any strategy, and his spells are so powerful that they are difficult to fight. But Ravel decided not to give up and show his strength anyway. But Ravel felt a strong anger towards his opponent at this moment and remembered how they discussed about different kinds of magic power. Mr. Colt had always advised him on what to study and what to ignore, especially mental magic, which Ravel had already learned in the past is a great power, because with its help you can put on control your enemy. It is not a good idea to use this powerful magic during an intense battle, as the enemy will be cautious, so it will only weaken the magic power. Ravel and Colt talked in many magical things, and it was obvious that their development went in different directions. And Colt advised his companion to delve deeper into the study of ancient magic and subsequently hone its use. But Ravel did not want to stop on the path, and he wanted to study a variety of different types of magic and become stronger, and realized this during the journey. As a result, Mr. Colt said that Ravel was wasting his precious time. But instead of doing a thorough study of magical energy and various powerful spells. After all, it would be best to discard everything unnecessary about his life and start learning the full depth of magic. Then Ravel might not think about his weakness. Ravel didn't want to listen to his opponent and was focused on maneuvering. Ravel noticed that there was no magical energy emanating from his opponent, and perhaps he had learned to hide it during his hard training due to his incredible wisdom. Even so, Ravel was eager to win and did not even think about his defeat. Mr. Colt meanwhile continued to attack and talk about how Ravel could use any magic if he wanted to. Mr. Colt then decided to change tactics to attack. As a result, the great sage created many glowing orbs and said that it was time to shine. The powerful magical strike stunned Ravel, and the young industrious fellow felt a real barrage of energy from all sides. It was incredibly difficult to withstand such an attack, and in the end Ravel fell to his knees feeling unbearable pain. This was the moment Colt had been waiting for and was enjoying his superiority. Borzo was disappointed with the outcome of the fight but recognized that the young sage was indeed a very strong opponent. Lar wanted to help Ravel and admitted that she had never seen Colt so ruthless before. But Ravel, in spite of the pain, still withstood the powerful blow and asked his opponent if Colt could not handle him. Ravel declared himself ready to fight. But Colt showed no emotion and said that he had created this magnificent object with the help of ancient magic, and thanks to this stone he would be able to strike a decisive blow. Therefore, Ravel could forget about his foolish hopes of victory. The only thing that interested Colt at this moment, when he was concentrating a huge amount of magical energy, could his opponent survive after such a powerful blow. But Ravel was ready for the decisive battle and advised the great sage not to hold back his desires, for all the spectators in this arena would be interested to see what he was capable of. Mr. Colt responded to this provocation and promised to display all the power he had achieved with his great wisdom. But after a few seconds, a huge magic circle that Ravel had created manifested in the arena. It was a very cunning move on the part of the new guy who had not just maneuvered in the arena, but had carefully drawn this magic circle and was now ready to reproduce the sage's strongest magic, which he had amplified several times. Ravel had indeed kept his promise and was able to create an incredible air current that was like a huge hurricane sweeping away everything in its path. The impact of this powerful air magic was reflected even on the spectators who were trying to stay in their seats. Ravel then began to recall the moments when he had communicated with Colt. While Ravel spent time with his friends and socializing, Colt preferred to be alone and a huge number of different books. Eventually, Colt confessed that he was afraid of becoming a useless thing who would one day be abandoned and forgotten forever. These silly words only made Ravel laugh, and he explained to his companion that in fact his best trait is that he worries most about his magic. And because of that, he is the only one who does not mock the talent of Diligence and therefore would never want to part with such a person. These words struck Mr. Colt and he felt an unusual feeling for himself, and then blushing heavily he confessed that he now truly understood Ravel's motives. But then when Ravel fell to the ground because of the decline of magical powers, Colt decided that this time he had lost and now he could feel the bitter feeling of defeat. But as it turned out, it was just a cunning plan by Ravel, who tricked his opponent and then suddenly attacked him. Ravel felt his opponent's heavy sigh and said that this magic could not be useless. Colt-san of course realized that his opponent had used illusion and deception magic to convince him of his weakness. Ravel explained that this magic actually works, just a few seconds of a small amount of magical energy. But the main thing of course is to raise the magical structure of this cunning spell. Colt of course realized that illusion magic was not a hallucination at all and asked what Ravel would do if his plan didn't work. But that only elicited a laugh from his buddy, and Ravel said he would have won another way. Colt thought for a while and eventually accepted his defeat, although his lead over his opponent was small. Therefore, Ravel is worthy of the title of an incredible blacksmith who managed to defeat the sage in a duel. It was the most exciting moment that the slave felt, because now in front of a huge number of people he was declared the champion of this tournament. The host of the show praised the guy and his friends were proud of the guy. Borzo told at this moment how his father Aiden had constantly studied the combinations of magic with blade attacks and reached a flawless level in the end. Therefore, Ravel could also follow the same path and gain additional knowledge as a swordsman. A few weeks after the end of the rookie tournament, the city was already living its normal life, but Ajito was still worried about his defeat and couldn't accept it. He was annoyed by the noise of the city and was not happy to watch the cheerful locals chatting around the market stalls. But suddenly someone called out to Ajito and made him turn around. It was the girl merchant Lar, and she welcomed Ajito to the renewed guild. But Ajito immediately noticed the mistakes that had been made on the notice board. Lar thanked him for such a remark and decided to fix it. Lar then talked about the large number of quests that came in after the tournament was over, and it was very annoying. Ajito had also heard about it, but now he was too busy himself. Lar told about the different people who constantly visit the guild and choose their quests, and they also want to buy weapons and armor. And all this popularity happened for one reason only. That reason was of course Ravel, the champion of the past rookie tournament. Also popular was the girl with long ears Ira, who came in 5th place. Lar inquired about Ajito's progress, but the irritated guy grabbed the merchant trying to silence her. But at that moment Ira returned to the guild after completing another dangerous quest, and she asked Ajito to immediately apologize for his behavior in the guild. Ira explained to Ajito that he had lost his duel because he was weak and overconfident, because he didn't take Ravel's talent seriously. Ajito thought that his strength and talent was enough, and in the end he was wrong. Inigo couldn't hold back his emotions, and now he had already knocked the two girls to the ground, trying to make them not talk about his weakness anymore. At this moment Lizzie appeared in the guild and saw the whole scandal and then asked Ajito to calm down. Meanwhile, everyone was marveling at the abilities of Colt, who was able to simplify magic and change its structure. Such an achievement made it possible to open a new class of magic and develop it in the future. Lar admitted that she never would have thought that a man like Colt could change. The man with the black mustache immediately offered his help, and Colt thought that the man was probably a nobleman. That turned out to be the case, but Colt immediately explained that he wasn't very fond of various nobles, though perhaps that was too prejudiced. The jolly nobleman took no offense at all and began to hug the young sage, promising him true friendship. The nobleman admitted that he was willing to spend any money to learn magic. Lar looked at what was happening with interest and decided that Colt had a talent for attracting various important people from whom it would be possible to get a lot of useful information. Ajito recalled the magical abilities of his friend Lizzie, who was always idle. But Lizzie didn't care about her life at all and didn't take criticism at all, because she was able to become a rank adventurer and perhaps reached her limit. Lizzie immediately talked about how hard Ajito had been practicing lately so that she wouldn't lose next time. Lizzie then asked where Ravel was now. As it turned out, the Diligence talent holder was currently unable to perform tasks, and was thinking about how to increase his rank. Lar told her about the exhausting trainings on which Ravel spends all his time and practically does not rest. And Ravel's main focus is on the mastery of the blade. Ravel moved constantly simulating a battle with his opponents and set a small well-fixed stone as his target. But each blow against the hard stone caused severe pain. As it turned out, despite his best efforts, Ravel could not even scratch this mysterious stone, and it was difficult to master the special swordsmanship technique. Borzo asked if Ravel remembered what this stone was. The lad certainly knew about orichalcum, a mythical stone that was famous for its incredible durability. It was highly prized but very difficult to work. Borzo told how Ravel's father had once been able to cut such a stone. Borzo highly appreciated Ravel's ability to analyze the behavior of his opponents and use any convenient opportunity to achieve victory. Ravel was excellent at putting opponents in a difficult position by finding their weaknesses. But it was unknown how Ravel could find options for victory in the event that he was surrounded by enemies, and how he would be able to defeat them all at once while simultaneously defending himself against their attacks. That's why Ravel must master a special technique that will destroy anything. And if he can learn this beautiful skill, Ravel can become the strongest guy in the world. It's called the unstoppable hold. Of course, concentration and talent allowed him to move forward. The body grows stronger and harder when magical power flows through it. But there were still some things Ravel still didn't understand. Much was already available, but Ravel decided that to learn the unyielding blade he would need to be as focused as possible. After all, every wrongly executed attack was accompanied by severe pain and a decrease in magical energy. And so far Ravel had not succeeded. And even more, it was not clear how his father was able to achieve this, because he did not even possess magical abilities. But every failed attempt only added to Ravel's motivation, and he decided to concentrate as much as possible to achieve the best result and cut the orichalcum. At that moment, the cheerful Lar decided to visit Ravel and inform her friend that he had been promoted. But the girl was disappointed. As it turned out, Ravel disappeared without a trace, and Lar did not understand how this was possible. Meanwhile, the guy was trying to realize what had happened to him and where he was. Ravel looked around and realized that it was a place filled with strong, powerful magical energy. And then the guy heard a beautiful and gentle female voice. Meanwhile, the beautiful girls were fighting a horrible monster that was ready to tear anyone in its path. The girls found themselves in a very difficult position. But everything changed after a moment when Anna intervened in the situation and instantly attacked the evil monster. Anna's appearance was a complete surprise for the girls, and now they hoped for salvation. In the end, the intervention of the Dragon Knight Anna was the turning point in this confrontation, and thanks to teamwork the monster was destroyed. As a result, the girls were hoping to get high marks for such a difficult test. But unlike the other girls, Anna continued to be as focused as possible. Anna explained that she was left with a bad feeling. But the girls were sure that there were no monsters here and they could relax, especially if they were on the academy grounds. Everyone just wanted to get as many points as possible in this task. But then the girls' calmness was replaced by fear, for they all felt something very big and dangerous approaching. Everyone who felt calm now hoped to get out alive, because ahead was a manticore. It is a huge monster with bright red hair, and a lion's head and 3 rings on the tail. Because of its aggressive behavior and also because of its thirst to hunt people, it is called a devourer. Such dangerous qualities of this vicious creature made the guild leadership rank Monticore to the highest rank of S monsters. A girl named Luna decided to get away as quickly as possible because they were too weak to fight such a monster. Luna rushed to run away, but that only made the Manticore even angrier, which felt every movement of its target, and was ready to start a new hunt. Everything was quite predictable, and the predatory monster tried to attack the girls, but luckily this time there were no casualties. But it was impossible to relax. All the girls as well as Anna herself were too scared and realized that they should run away as fast as possible. But Anna at this moment was already thinking about something else. Anna wished to distract the monster and advise the others to run away. Anna was confident in her abilities and wanted to help people so that the teachers would know about it. But Luna was against this idea and reminded Anna that she would be fighting the most dangerous monster they could meet. But Anna was already preparing herself for the ordeal and trying to concentrate. Luna was afraid for Anna's life, because not many people could resist the Manticore, but Anna was ready to fight and despite her good character felt like a real warrior. In fact, Anna realized who she had to fight and hoped that she could hold out long enough to buy time for the others to escape to the academy. Anna could only admit to herself that she was too shy to fight. But since she had entered the Hero Academy, she couldn't disgrace herself and lose without a fight. much less just run away in front of the others. At that moment, Anna remembered about her best friend Ravel, with whom they were going to see each other after 3 years of training at the academy, and she dreamed about it all the time. But now Anna was desperate and felt that she might not be able to fulfill this promise, and mentally apologized for that. But suddenly Ravel appeared next to her and Anna couldn't believe it. The guy asked not to worry and was ready to fulfill what he had trained and fought so hard for. Anna instantly forgot about the horrible monster and wanted to talk to Ravel, but the guy wanted to protect his friend first, and then to discuss everything, and asked Anna to wait a little longer. Ravel concentrated as much as possible looking at the manticore because he had never had to fight such a dangerous monster before. But now he had no chance to make a mistake and he had to protect Anna. This was the long-awaited moment of reunion of two old friends who dreamed of continuing their life journey together. But now they had another task to survive in a dangerous battle with a terrible monster. Ravel was determined and promised his favorite girl Anna to protect her until death, because that was the main purpose of his life. Not long before that, the young Ta owner met a deity in the form of a beautiful woman. The goddess noticed that the guy behaves very confidently, and is not at all surprised to meet a goddess. Ravel knew about this because Colt had told him about his encounter. But the longer he looked at the beautiful goddess, the more he believed that in front of him is really a representative of the higher world, which can decide the fate of all mankind. Then the goddess broke the silence and suggested to listen to her attentively, as she had important information that she would like to tell during this amazing meeting. The goddess continued to smile sweetly and informed Ravel that his beloved girl Anna was now in mortal danger, and it was necessary to intervene. But at the same time, the goddess herself did not know from where on the territory of the elite academy appeared such a dangerous monster. But boy, how is it possible that God does not know such things? Goddess appreciated the courage of the guy, but the situation was really and not clear, wanted to help save Anna. The goddess offered to teleport Ravel to the monster so that he could defeat him and save his favorite girl. But the guy asked why the goddess even decided to help him. But the goddess explained that she had a vested interest in the case. In fact, the goddess was very fond of the inhabitant of this world, even though she is obliged to maintain balance. The goddess didn't give any more details and decided to get down to business. The girl said that it was time to go and advised the guy to try to defeat this terrible monster, because Manticore is a strong monster that Ravel had never met before. It was in this incredible way that the young industrious lad found himself on the scene and was now ready to fight the monster. But all his attacks were to no avail, and there wasn't a single scratch on the Manticore's body. It was obvious that this horrible monster had a defense against physical damage and needed to try another way of attacking. Surprised and frightened, Anna watched the battle with interest and was shocked at how skillfully her best friend used magic power. But even magic fireballs could not stop such a powerful opponent, and in the end the young boy advised Anna to leave. It was very difficult for Ravel to fight and protect the girl at the same time, and he was afraid of making a mistake. The friendly and loyal dragon Q came to the rescue and promised to take the girl with him. The little dragon himself did not know how he appeared in this place, but now it was absolutely unimportant. Now Ravel was left alone with the terrible monster, and feeling as his beloved she was already at a safe distance, was now ready to fight. But the Monticore still managed to deliver a very painful and unpleasant blow from which Ravel felt the effects of the poison. This I acted instantly, and the guy's movements became slower and his whole body ached. So it was necessary to activate the magic power as soon as possible to slow down the spread of the poison. But despite the poisoning, Ravel could still fight and was ready to finish the job. But it was obvious that it was not an easy battle. Meanwhile, Anna tried to get out of the dragon's lab and explained that if she didn't help her friend, he would probably die. Q complied with the girl's request, and after a short flight Anna collapsed on the hard floor. It was amazing that Anna could understand what the dragon was talking about. After all, they had only met a few minutes ago. But even so, Q felt a special connection to her. It seemed as if they had known each other for a very long time. But she didn't want to discuss their special bond of children needed to save Ravel as soon as possible, though the little dragon was against it. Anna didn't understand how they could even put Ravel in such a deadly situation. But the dragon only wanted to fulfill his master's request and take the girl to the safe place. Q then admitted that it was also very difficult for him to watch his master fight a dangerous monster, and it was difficult to follow orders under such circumstances. The dragon then asked Anna to exercise her Dragon Knight powers to help Ravel. The girl begins to realize that she has no other way out, because only she has such a talent, and now it is necessary to show all her strength and save her friend. Meanwhile, Raoul desperately fought against the terrible monster and tried to block all his blows. At the same time, he tried to improve his physical attacks with the help of magic and also to control the consumption of his power. But after a few minutes, the terrible pain in his left arm increased from the poison and eventually his arm was immobilized. Even so, the magical flow in that area was increasing, and it was exactly what Borzo had said earlier about the importance of the unyielding blade. I decided that if I let the poison spread throughout his body, then perhaps he would master the strike of the unyielding blade. Although of course it was very dangerous, and he could be paralyzed. Ravel doubted whether he should risk so much, and perhaps he could deceive the monster and pretend to be in a stupor in order to strike a decisive blow at the last moment. But the attacks of the manticore did not stop for a second, and they were exhausting the guy, who wanted at least a few seconds of rest. The monster's animal instincts were of a high level, and it was very difficult to fight them. Ravel was constantly trying to find an answer to the question of how to activate the blow of the unyielding blade. Because if he did not do it, he would most likely lose and die in this battle, and would not even be able to talk to his beloved Anna. But suddenly the manticore stopped attacking and seemed to be distracted by some other target. This was Ravel's chance to rest for a few seconds. Suddenly a huge dragon appeared from the sky, which was much larger than the manticore and looked much more dangerous than this poisonous monster. Ravel of course recognized his beloved pet, which had somehow incredibly acquired enormous size. Anna ordered the dragon to use its fire breath, which could turn the tide of battle. Ravel was shocked by what was happening and did not understand how his little dragon could turn into a terrible monster under Anna's control. But it was unknown whether such a spectacular appearance of the dragon would eventually help Ravel to activate his unstoppable blade, because in case of failure he would be paralyzed. Anna decided to support her friend and advised him to believe in his own strength. Manticore, despite the numerical superiority of the enemy, was not going to give up and was ready to fight even with a huge dragon. But this time Ravel felt the support of his friends and now tried to concentrate his magic powers to the maximum. The pulsating streams of magical energy were quickly spreading deadly poison all over his body, but Ravel tried to control this process and waited for the moment when he could try to use the unyielding blade. The appearance of his friends helped to buy time, and now Ravel decided that it was the right moment to rush at the monster swinging his blade. The first blow unfortunately only missed the monster's body, and the manticore tried to attack again with its poisonous tail. But Ravel quickly changed his position. But the next powerful blow proved to be that unyielding blade and was able to easily sever the neck of the huge creature. This delighted his friends, and Ravel felt confident and incredibly strong. For now he could master the unyielding blade and confirmed his title as the most diligent man in the world. After his incredible victory over the horrible monster and acquiring the unstoppable blade skill, he was ready for new heroic deeds and wanted to get a new mission in the guild. Immediately after defeating the manticore, realized that he teleported to the previous location, without having time to talk to his favorite girl Anna. It was the most exciting and sad moment, so Ravel still felt like he was on some kind of battlefield. After that, Borzo helped to recover, and eventually Ravel took a few days vacation. It was necessary to deal with the poison and decide what to do next. Thanks to his magical abilities, he managed to get rid of the poison and clean his body, but unfortunately his left arm was still paralyzed and he had to wait for improvement. In the meantime, Anna became a very famous girl who was able to defy the manticore and save her friends, and now she has greatly increased her reputation in the Academy of Heroes. Soon Ravel was visited by a beautiful girl, Alina, who was the new administrator of the guild, and said that she would be happy to cooperate. Ravel thanked her for the visit, and it turned out that Alina had brought a letter. The letter came as a surprise to the boy, and eventually he found out that it came from the United Federation of Guilds, an organization that had great power. Ravel accepted the invitation, and after a while he found himself in the main castle of the United Federation of Guilds, where he was received as a dear guest and politely invited to an audience. But moving through the huge hall, suddenly Ravel was attacked by ice statues, and it was not what he had expected when he went to visit. The ice statues were huge in size and were knights and monsters. Ravel was certainly ready to fight, but he didn't fully understand why. Using his magical power, Ravel was able to destroy the ice statues with magical fire, turning them into ordinary water. Soon the leader of the United Federation of Guilds, Levis, appeared and praised the boy for his incredible ability to use his physical and magical powers. Levis recognized that the hero academies had missed a rare chance to have such a great guy in their ranks. Then Levis offered to have lunch together, and Ravel was delighted with the pleasant taste of perfectly cooked wild boar meat. He had never eaten food like this before and enjoyed every bite. Levis said that the meat is left for about 20 days at a warm temperature in order to form mushrooms that give softness and juiciness. But do not worry, because before the final use of the meat is thoroughly cleaned. Although the freshness of the meat is very important, but still some fans prefer this treatment in order to feel the incredible flavor of this product. And of course the formation of bacteria creates an effect in the dish. Ravel finally asked him to name the true purpose of their meeting, for it was unlikely that they had met to discuss culinary preferences. Levis agreed and said that he would give Ravel admission to the elite academy. Levis is a very worthy candidate, because he was able to defeat the great swordsman and sage at the tournament of beginners, as well as a huge manticore. And after a thorough investigation, it became known that the poison that Ravel was taking out of his body belonged to the monster that Anna had killed. Levis explained that he certainly does not know how Ravel appeared in that very place, and why Anna did not tell about the details of what happened during the battle with the monster. But it should be understood that in the Elite Academy are only professionals. Ravel was very happy about this proposal, because one of his goals was to enter this Elite Academy, and now it was achieved. But as it turned out, there was one important condition. Levis explained that it would be possible if Ravel became an adventurer of S rank in 1 year, and then he could get an official invitation to the Elite Academy. Ravel was saddened by this condition and recalled how only a few minutes ago Levis had called him the most worthy person to enter the Academy of Heroes. But Levis turned out to be a cunning man and advised the guy to continue training in the same spirit and constantly perform very difficult missions to eventually be a fermented man that is absolutely ready for any danger and difficulties. After all, in this way it would be possible to prove to the Academy authorities that they were wrong when they took Ravel for training. After all, it usually takes many years to reach S rank, and it depends on the quality and complexity of the missions. Ravel now fully understood what he would be doing for the next year, and after thanking them for the wonderful treat, he hurried to say goodbye and head back to the guild. Levis was satisfied with this meeting and realized that he had been just as brave and strong in his youth. Ravel now fully devoted all his free time to the fulfillment of dangerous tasks, of course did not forget about training. But after a while, the young man reached his limit and decided that he needed to learn new skills and work harder. One of the useful skills was to get the ability to create storage for items. Space and inventory could hold absolutely anything, because in it did not work the laws of time and space. This skill was quite difficult to learn, but Ravel was able to do it, and now he could not worry about his stamina during the long journey. Lar was delighted with the magical inventory and was very jealous. After all, if she could use such skills, her trade would reach a new level. The girl asked for more details on how to master such a skill, and as it turned out, it was only necessary to concentrate all his magical energy and try to activate the inventory. Ravel explained that it is very difficult to achieve such an effect, but hard work always helps to achieve the desired result. Lar was delighted and wanted to repeat the process. Ravel also continued to train together with Sage Cult, and they tried to restore magical energy during sleep. This was a very effective method because 1 hour could compensate for 8 hours of rest. Constant training and running helped to achieve mastery, and now Ravel was running at such a speed that normal eyesight did not even have time to follow him. So the special training method was taught by Ira, who was also always happy to help. The admin girl Eleonora meanwhile always picked up the most dangerous and best quests for her favorite adventurer, and Ravel performed them with incredible speed and came for new quests. In the end, Eleanor said that there were no more quests left, and she couldn't give all the remaining missions, even the simplest ones, to just one person, because then the guild would be empty. But Ravel demanded missions, and it all escalated into a serious dispute with the guild administrator. Especially Ravel was already ready to raise his rank, but for this he had to wait at least 1 month. Ravel decided not to give up and begged the girl to give him new tasks, because he is working hard and wants to reach the highest rank as quickly as possible. But Eleanor was adamant. Type promised the guy a mission that will be an exam for him before the promotion. But just at that moment, Lar offered to do a special mission that would take a month, and she prepared it in advance, realizing that Ravel would want to raise his rank faster. The rank up mission was to obtain the Minotaur's horns on the 20th floor of Frappara's dungeon. This mission required tremendous effort, and thus not all adventurers could accomplish it. Ravel was happy to receive such a difficult task and thanked the girl for her help. Ravel promised to definitely complete this task and increase his rank to the next level. While Ravel was happy and carried Lar in his arms, the admin girl carefully read the terms of the task and asked to pay attention to the written text. After all, as it turned out, a rank B adventurer would first have to form a special team consisting of 2 more people and only then begin to fulfill this mission. The first who wished to join the team was of course Ira, who always wanted to be near Ravel, and the guy thanked the girl for her courage, because her strength was useful. Ira decided that they would definitely manage, although she herself had only gotten to the 5th floor of the dungeon before. Ravel of course knew how much of a trained adventurer Ira was. After all, she always knocked her free time with measuring training. Ravel was the person who motivated the girl, and together they tried much harder during the workouts. Ravel and Ira would push themselves to the point of exhaustion, but were still happy when they got stronger. Then Ira confessed that in fact she tried to train hard only once a week, but she didn't have to tell her father about it. Borzo knew it himself, but pretended not to realize it. The next member of the team was of course the sage Colt, who to Ravel's surprise immediately agreed to carry out the mission. Colt explained that he had recently developed a new magical technique and this would be a great chance to try it out. Colt said that he was looking forward to seeing the potential of his new abilities, and together they would be able to overcome new heights of magical powers. Ravel agreed with the sage. The sage then explained that his research involved the study of special magic and he would like to conduct it together. Ravel agreed to these terms, but asked to do so after the mission was accomplished. Q also wanted to travel with his friends. Ravel was of course grateful to his little pet, especially after the battle with the manticore, but he didn't know if Q could transform into a huge monster again. Ravel thought that Q should stay away from the chop, but somehow at that moment he was able to teleport and help in the battle with the manticore, and it was unknown how he was able to turn into a huge dragon. Colt advised not to deny the pet and explained that many dragon researchers had noticed that they had never seen anyone like Q, which meant he had great potential. Lar talked about how the Mechanics Guild wanted to capture Q, but in the end he was able to fight and save Anna, so this little monster holds many mysteries and should not be left alone at home. In the end, Ravel agreed to take the pet with him on a dangerous mission. Q was as happy as a little child and promised to be the most useful pet in the whole world. The next day, the united team of adventurers was ready to go on a dangerous mission to the dungeon of Frappara, and they were escorted by all the members of the guild, not wishing them luck. Soon the friends found themselves in front of the main gate to the labyrinth, and first they had to register as participants. Ira suggested they approach her since she had been to this place before. But then everyone was surprised to see Agito and Lizzie, who were old acquaintances. Agito was still angry with Ravel and remembered that sad day when he lost his fight at the tournament. But now he knew that Ravel had come to this labyrinth to increase his rank. As it turned out, Agito had also been chosen for the mission and wanted to increase his rank, so he had been practicing for a very long time. Ravel was a little disappointed to learn that he wasn't the only strong adventurer who was aiming for a higher rank, but he was ready for another competition anyway. Lizzie meanwhile explained that a certain group of floors corresponded to the rank of adventurers, and although the monsters get stronger with each level, but on the upper floors you can meet bosses from lower floors, and the Minotaur is located on the 4th floor. After its appearance, the Minotaur's habitat areas were under the control of the Federation, and after numerous evaluations, experts decided that this monster can defeat adventurers with rank A, but because of the huge danger, many guilds try not to lose adventurers with rank B and send them to the maze. Ravel realized that he had received special permission to participate in this difficult mission, and Alina talked about how it could take a month to process the application. Therefore, only the most experienced adventurers could be allowed to register. But after the end of the rookie tournament, only 2 months had passed, which meant that Lar had once again used her trickery to get permission. In the end, everyone decided to create a queue to see who would be the first to go to the labyrinth to do the tasks. Of course, many applicants started to argue, and Lissy and Agito went first. Ravel began to resent and reminded about his special permission from the guild, thanks to which he could pass the task without registration. But Agito was not going to accept this and continued to do what he had in mind. Colt advised his comrade not to get upset and go to the registration, but Ravel was angered by the fact that the safe zone was already fully occupied. Eventually, Ravel made it to the check-in desk. A conversation began among the applicants and each told of their motives, and Ravel, smiling sweetly, announced that he and his team wanted to enter the labyrinth. Many of the adventurers were already ready for their tasks, and some were returning from the labyrinth. The whole thing was a huge and noisy process. Colt reminded that it was important to remember to be cautious, for reckless actions could lead to terrible results. Parable was surprised to see such a huge number of adventurers rushing to complete the task. Ira explained that there were no difficult monsters or hidden traps on the first 10 floors, so it would be possible to pass them quickly. But no matter what, they had to hurry, and Ravel's team used magic to increase their running speed to get ahead of all their opponents. After a while, the team was already on the 11th floor of the dungeon, and now everyone was waiting for the appearance of a huge number of monsters. To defeat them, they had to understand who they were facing. But suddenly the calm atmosphere was broken by a magical attack. A huge stone crashed a few centimeters away from the team, and by some miracle nobody was injured. This time Sage Cult decided to personally take part in this magical duel, and unleashed a magical flame of immense power on the enemy, hoping that it would be enough for victory. But as it turned out, the opponent in the form of a stone was able to somehow absorb all the magical power directed at him and splash it back. Everyone was shocked by such power of the enemy. But in the end everything was over, because the Sage's magical energy was so strong that it destroyed the stone. Ravel and the others decided that next time they should be more careful. Further progress of the team was connected with killing all the monsters that met on their way. But coordinated work helped to get out of even the most dangerous situations. Meanwhile, Agito and Lizzie were also busy killing monsters and gradually making their way to new levels of the dungeon. Lizzie tried to help, but it only made Agito angrier. Lizzie advised her partner to learn other techniques besides the basic one, to use a lot of weapons, because that way he could increase his reaction speed. But Agito was his usual cocky self and only wanted to be better than Ravel. Soon they found themselves in a very strange empty place where it was so quiet that you could hear your own heartbeat. People speculated that perhaps this place was a precursor to the special zone. While Lizzie and Agito were there, Ravel's team had already reached the 18th floor, and so far everything was going smoothly. But Sage Cult was worried that they were going the wrong way. But suddenly she made an unforgivable mistake and was careless. The girl stepped on a special button that activated a death trap, and now she could die. But at the very last moment the Sage Cult came to the rescue and used his knowledge of alchemy to save the girl. Cult told how he had become interested in Ravel's abilities and had carefully studied the new possibilities for himself. The sage sincerely did not understand why other people do not use such magic together, not time, because thanks to such a combination it was possible to reach great heights. But of course everything is acquired with talent, and only a few people can perfectly practice with magical powers. That's why people like Ravel can break all stereotypes with their diligence. The sage explained that modern magic is much easier to study than ancient magic, and that is why Ravel is a bearer of unique knowledge and possibilities. But at the same time such possibilities can frighten other people, because it is peculiar for people to be afraid of something unknown. And Ravel is completely different from other owners of talents. Well, talented people are the foundation for a nation that grows stronger through this system. The Elite Academy is a simple testament to how much depends on talented people. Unlike ancient magic, talents can be passed on and cannot be experimented on, and there are cases of discrimination because of talents. Of course, no one wants to live in a slum, but unfortunately people with weak talents are considered inferior. Cult thought about this process for a long time and decided that perhaps even those who give talents don't understand how it works, although perhaps there are other more ulterior motives for the distribution of talents. Meanwhile, the team had already reached the 19th floor of the dungeon, and the difficulty level was now much higher. As it turned out, on this floor the two opposing teams met, and Agito advised the girl with the long ears to concentrate because there was a huge number of angry monsters. It was unknown why there was such a huge number of monsters in this place, because nothing like this had ever happened before. Lizzie advised Ravel to think about it later and just fight first. The chaotic and unexpected appearance of monsters in the labyrinth was a strange phenomenon called the Monster House, and usually such a mass gathering of monsters occurred in front of special areas of the dungeon. Ravel finally decided that if they could overcome all these opponents, they would reach the 20th floor where the Minotaur might live. Ravel wanted to reach the next floor faster than Agito, because otherwise they might get stuck between the Minotaur and these monsters. Ravel already had a great idea, but the sage advised him not to talk about it in front of his rivals. Ravel suddenly decided to deal with all the monsters in the level by himself, while his friends and the opposing team were to deal with the Minotaur. Ravel promised that he wouldn't let any of these monsters get into the special zone, so everyone else could safely fight the Minotaur and not worry. Rero was unsure about this plan, but Ravel explained that it would be enough for him to buy some time until the Minotaur died. Sage Cult also disagreed, for Ravel was jeopardizing his mission, and the time given by the head of the Federation was limited. But Ravel promised to find another way to get a level up, for if they delayed, someone would be in danger. Lizzie decided to stay with Ravel and help him to fight with monsters, because the two of them will be much easier to cope with this task, and 3 adventurers will be enough to destroy the Minotaur. Vegito in this situation was not satisfied, because in this way Ravel did him a favor, but still decided to follow the plan and destroy the Minotaur as soon as possible. Now the friends had to hurry until Ravel and Lisa ran out of strength to fight countless monsters. But if they survived this deadly battle, they would of course become great adventurers. Colt, Ira and Vegito quietly sneaked to the 20th floor and hurriedly found the Minotaur and destroyed it while their friends held back the onslaught of monsters behind them. But then they saw a wounded special manager of the Guild Federation who had clearly lost his fight and was now advising everyone who dared to be on this level to run away immediately. The special manager was screaming in pain and talking about how not even Ranka adventurers would be able to deal with the horrible Minotaur, which was much stronger than expected. Meanwhile, Lizzie continued to destroy the monsters and began to realize that the onslaught of enemies was not weakening, and the power of the monster's attack was getting stronger by the second. All the adventurers faced a huge danger and did not understand how to get out of this death trap. While the heroes were fighting in a dangerous dungeon with monsters, cheerful nobleman met with the head priest and offered to chat over a glass of wine. But the priest preferred to drink only pure water. As it turned out, the nobleman and the head priest knew each other from early childhood, could freely communicate without regard to rank. The main factor in this world was of course the talents that were given to people and were a true divine blessing. The battle in the dungeon had been going on for hours, but no one could say that it would end soon. Sage tried his best to deliver a crushing blow to the Minotaur, but it wasn't easy. Sage Colt managed to get a safe distance from the Minotaur and attacked the monster with a wind blast. The powerful spell took a long time to stun the Minotaur, but it did not. The Minotaur was actually able to repel the spell and meant it possessed its own powerful magic. In doing so, the monster absorbed the energy of its opponents and used it to heal its wounds. Everyone realized that they would die in this place if they didn't come up with a solution. On the previous floor of the dungeon, Lissy and Ravel also continued to fight non-stop and realized that the number of monsters was not decreasing despite their efforts. Ravel of course fought much more effectively than his partner and showed his unstoppable blade. Lizzie had never seen such a thing before and asked how it was possible to achieve such strength. But the boy as usual answered that it was all due to diligence. Then Ravel turned his attention to the terrible condition of his pet. Hugh complained of panic attacks and the power that penetrated him. All of this made it impossible for him to fight. The little dragon was very agitated and hurriedly ran away to the side. At the same time, Q asked his friends not to approach him in any way, and then he turned completely black. It seemed as if the darkness itself had consumed the little pet, and it was a sign of some very strong and evil magic that Ravel had never encountered before. The teams continued to fight the Minotaur heroically, but all attempts to destroy the monster proved fruitless. Ira tried to delay the Minotaur and buy some time for his partners. Colt and Vegito admired Ira's ability to move quickly and shoot accurately at the same time. The girl was indeed very flexible and agile, and her training with Ravel had allowed her to use the magic sheath. But no one understood what to do with the Minotaur, because they could not even scratch his skin, and the wise man Colt decided to somehow deprive the monster of the ability to regenerate. Eventually Colt came up with a solution, but in order to do so Vegito had to become bait. The sage then activated his magical abilities again and decided to envelop his partner in a fiery aura. Vegito didn't expect such a thing, and Colt explained that the opponent was able to repel any fire and wind attacks, but there was a chance to hit him with a fire slash. Colt was surprised at his own actions, because he considered himself a very selfish person interested only in magic spells. But now he was able to create a powerful combination with ancient magic and pass it to another person. Vegito now only had to put all his power into this strike. Meanwhile, Lissy and Ravel were trying to understand what had happened to the little dragon, as it had become a huge monster that was destroying everything around it. Ravel also noticed that Q was very different from his last incarnation, and was behaving more aggressively. This whole situation was too dangerous, and Lissy decided to attack the dragon and get rid of it while she had the chance. But Ravel of course was against it and tried to protect his pet despite the beliefs of the girl, who thought the dragon was no longer that small and cheerful baby dragon. But Ravel still protected Q despite the danger. Ravel simply could not betray his favorite pet and considered him not just a monster, but his friend and part of the family. As it turned out, these words had an effect on the dragon and he began to change again. The huge dragon began to wriggle and growl in terrible pain, but after a few minutes he managed to control his rage and turned back into a small pet. Well, now it was time to be cruel for Ravel, and he was ready to destroy anyone who dared to get close to his little friend. Ravel bravely went forth, destroying all the monsters in his path, and now his fury was only adding to the young lad's strength. Just like Ravel, his former rival Ajito rushed to the attack, reinforced this time by the sage's magical fire aura. Despite all his negative qualities, Ajito was still a very brave adventurer, and did not hesitate to pounce on the huge minotaur trying to give him crushing blows. Ira meanwhile did not stop for a second and continued to attack the monsters with her pistols. The girl could skillfully control her magic bullets even at a distance and point them in the direction of flight. Just at this moment, Ravel had moved to a whole new level of destroying monsters and now turned into a real berserker, destroying everything in his path. Ira, Colt and Ajito felt incredibly relieved the moment their plan worked and the huge minotaur no longer threatened their safety and lives. On the previous floor of the dungeon, everything had quieted down and Lissy was calmly watching her partner, who had destroyed absolutely all the monsters and was now confused. Everything that had happened had shaken Ravel too much and he could no longer contain his emotions when he looked at the little dragon. The boy was under a lot of stress and was crying. Meanwhile, the head priest continued to communicate with his old friend and did not explain that some people believe that talents weaken people. The holders of powerful talents are fixated on enrollment even though they don't really have any serious commitments. But the number of people with powerful talents began to decline at a certain point. They stopped practicing physically, as there is no longer a serious threat like before, because the number of monsters on the main road has decreased. But there are still rumors that there are many of these horrible creatures outside the inhabited areas, and it is completely unknown at what point they may reappear, and therefore in no case should not relax. The head priest said that she does not want to continue this strange conversation, which only irritates her, because she believes in what she knows and realizes that many things cannot be changed in this world. While the priest and the nobleman continued to discuss possible variants of future events, the door to the room slowly opened and a strange hand of a stranger appeared. The strange dark silhouette was back in the divine realm and realized that the place had not changed at all, which was unusual for such a curious god. The goddess welcomed the visit, for her guest was no longer as desolate as before and seemed able to find his place. The mysterious guest called determination the very trait that helped him make a significant leap in his achievements, and then he laughed loudly, embarrassing the goddess. Suddenly, Lar burst into the room with a loud shout and broke the peace. No one even had time to react as the girl quickly approached the bed where Q was sleeping. Sage Colt called it too stupid behavior even for Lar, but the girl sharply responded, asking the sage to shut up. Many days after the dungeon mission, the little dragon still hadn't regained consciousness. And although the experienced veterinarian found nothing critical in Q's condition, the situation did not change. Old Borzo believed that Q's condition was due to the monsters that were attacking in the dungeon. On that terrible day, the monsters had somehow managed to escape from the dungeon. Everyone was prepared for this, but no one had ever encountered such an unusual phenomenon before. Lar was busy helping people at the time, but the losses were not so great despite the huge number of monsters. The attack was quickly repelled with the help of an adventurer of rank Ishida who happened to be nearby. Ravel thought that perhaps Q could have contracted rabies while in the dungeon. However, the pet wanted to go on this mission himself and would not agree to stay in the guild. The friends were still chatting and discussing about Q's condition, trying to find some solution. Just at that moment, the administrator Alina entered the room. Ravel noticed the girl's strange look and asked why Alina was so excited. The thoughtful administrator told him about a recent urgent assignment in which there was no limit on the number of participants. Alina talked about how the city of Rero, which is near the kingdom of Theory, is surrounded by a mob of monsters. The mission is to destroy these monsters and restore order in the area. Ira and Lar were immediately interested in fighting the terrifying monsters in the border town, but each of them realized the danger level of such a mission. Ajito and Lissy were also interested in the new dangerous mission. Ajito was eager to get back in the middle of the action and find out exactly what monsters were able to attack the city in such an organized manner. Lisa asked her partner if he was ready to do dangerous missions again, because he thought it would be easy to get the horns of the Minotaur and increase his level. Ajito was as confident as ever and confirmed his desire. But Ajito still felt a grudge against his main rival Ravel, and wanted to prove again that he could accomplish any difficult task on his own. Ajito demanded that Lissy stop being so serious and reminded them that there were no more rank-up missions and that no one would stop them from getting the horns, since the entrance to the dungeon was closed to everyone. That means that many people will want to take the new mission. Of course, among those who want to take the new mission will be Ravel, because he wants very much to get into the elite academy to be with his beloved girl. Meanwhile, Anna continued her studies at the elite academy and tried her best to become the strongest and most skillful student. The leaders and teachers of the academy considered Anna a very capable girl, because she was able to protect her friends and defeated the Manticore. And now there is a chance to witness the birth of a special dragon in the battle of the city of Rero. This time the girl was approached by the cheerful Captain Isaac, who always asked Anna to call him by his first name without mentioning his military ranks. Captain Isaac asked the girl if she was a senior citizen now, because she would be performing her first mission outside the elite academy. Anna did not lie but admitted that she was indeed a bit scared and excited. But Anna still looked forward to the future with confidence and felt the presence of someone close to her, so she was not going to back down under any circumstances. Isaac rejoiced and praised the girl for her positive attitude, because a lady in love can do a lot. Then the captain's assistant called him to an urgent meeting, which Isaac had completely forgotten about when he saw Anna and quickly went about his business. Meanwhile, Colt and Ravel were discussing the strange condition of the mission, for after the mission was completed, it was necessary to meet with a friend and it was most unusual. Sage Colt called the noisy nobleman a rather strange man, but there was something attractive and interesting about him. Colt sometimes wanted to become just like this nobleman, but the future was not like that. Ravel understood that Colt sometimes regretted his choice but did not want to touch on the painful topic. The sage thought it was all nonsense and didn't want to discuss it all the more, so now they had to deal with the monsters that surrounded the city. But at the same time they should not forget about their safety. The border city of Rero was quite large and now was not the best time in its history. After all, this city had not been subjected to such invasions before. Agito and Rero were amazed by the huge number of monsters that were even bigger than the 19th floor of the dungeon. The girl was nervous, but despite her fear she refused to leave the place. Rero was not going to retreat at the moment when all her friends will bravely perform this dangerous mission, and therefore it was necessary to forget about any fears and worries. Everyone admired the bravery of the fragile girl, but in Ira's opinion there was nothing unusual about it, because she had already shown her fighting qualities many times. Not left out of this situation and the head of the guild federation, Levis, who arrived in the city of Rero and caused excitement among the locals who had never seen him before. This city was a beautiful resort and the royal family was even going to spend their honeymoon on the local beaches. But equal to its attractions, this city served as a military base during various wars. But now this city was not in the best condition due to the invasion of monsters, and the head of the Federation of Guilds called to immediately engage in their destruction. Especially for such a feat promised a great reward. Levis promised to show all the combat experience and skill that is not inferior to the best representatives of the elite guild. And today was the time to show courage on the battlefield. This call was received with enthusiasm by all the adventurers and locals who were ready to do anything for glory and great reward and rushed to liberate the city. The first monsters that were encountered on the way were angry manticores, and one of the brave adventurers decided to hold off the monsters and be the first to fight. Ravel knew that this was a very brave but still reckless act, and so he advised the adventurer not to do this and to fight more cautiously. Ravel instantly went to the rescue and once again showed his unique blade strike that left no chance for anyone to escape, which surprised everyone who saw it. Anna soon heard about how someone had managed to destroy a pack of manticores during a joint attack of the adventurers. Anna realized from what she had heard that the guy was about the same age as her. There could be no doubt, and Anna knew that this guy was her favorite friend Ravel. She was overcome with emotion and hurried to find Captain Isaac. The girl quickly jumped into the saddle of the dragon and decided to start fighting the monsters as soon as possible. Captain Isaac didn't mind and praised the girl for her bravery. The rest of the elite academy also decided to join this important event after Anna, especially Captain Isaac, liked spectacular appearances. Ravel as well as the rest of the adventurers fought bravely, trying not to leave any monster unattended, and now the best fighters of the elite academy were rushing to their aid. What had happened was what the people close to them had wanted for a long time. Ravel and Anna protecting each other, feeling great despite the mortal danger, because this moment they have been waiting for a long time. Nearby, a mysterious dark character was watching everything that was happening and decided that it was time to start a magical war. And despite the fact that he lost 1,000 years ago, this time it should be different. The dark evil guy was serious this time and was going to repay this world for his years of neglect and weakness. But what was strangest of all was that the mysterious character knew Ravel perfectly well, and was already contemplating how to deal with the owner of the talent of Diligence. The decisive battle was in full swing, but things were completely different now. Ravel felt close to his favorite girl Anna and was ready to destroy anyone. Ira and Colt were also doing their best to eliminate the threat. Well, then all the adventurers were stunned by the appearance of a horrible monster S-rank Hydra that was incredibly huge in size. Ira warned Agito and advised him to be careful. The powerful magical attacks of the Hydra caused enormous damage, and some brave adventurers unfortunately died from this monster's fury. But just at this moment, the sage Colt intervened in the situation and once again showed incredible magical abilities, and with the help of fire magic was able to destroy many monsters, as well as weaken the defenses of the monsters. Colt was confident and acted very bravely, and then suggested to finish this soon and take care of his wounded comrades. But then a strange silhouette of a headless man walked towards the sage, which made Colt remember the cheerful nobleman. Colt was furious. I was going to give up even in the face of mortal danger. Especially he, as well as everyone else, had to clear this city of monsters. In addition to the usual monsters that moved quickly, in the invasion involved flying monsters, and Ravel realized that he could not so easily get to the enemy while he is in the air. But in this situation, Anna found an opportunity to show her strength, and thanks to her hand dragon she instantly attacked the flying monster. Ravel was satisfied with this result and watched Anna. But at the same time, Ravel felt a strong magical flow and speculated that perhaps this legion of monsters was being controlled by someone on purpose. Hugh talked about how he was abruptly filled with a strange energy and felt eerie at that moment. Ravel decided to turn the tide of battle as soon as possible and find out the true causes of the invasion. So he used auxiliary magic and accelerated as much as possible to move. As a result, Ravel found himself on the roof of a tall building and saw the creature that could be the organizer of the attack. A black shadow, or rather a dark silhouette, was emitting a strange energy. Ravel was completely sure that this blob of black magic was undoubtedly to blame for everything that was going on. And if it was destroyed, it might be possible to save this city. But the mysterious adversary was certainly not going to give up so easily, and explained that everything that was happening was a reminder of the great bath of monsters that happened a few years ago. And now his favorite pets are doing a great job and no one will be able to resist them. He was not going to listen to all this nonsense and tried to instantly attack the mysterious opponent. But as soon as the blade came as close as possible to the clot of black energy, he ran into an insurmountable barrier. Jokingly enough, he struck the strongest blow and heard the crunch of the breaking blade. The blow was so powerful that Ravel lost his balance and flew back several dozen meters. The black energy was still active and decided to finish off the enemy. In this battle, everyone was trying for a common victory, which is achieved only in a fierce battle. Ravel, who had lost his weapon, was not going to give up and threw a shard of his blade at the black mass. But the retaliatory blow of the mysterious opponent again stunned the diligent guy, who could not fully absorb this magical blow, and felt his body losing strength. With a single movement of his black hand, the mysterious adversary was able to incredibly block Ravel's movement, and eventually grab him. The Dark Man stated that Ravel had gained a wonderful talent, and could now learn much more about the great monster war. Ravel couldn't get out of this trap and wondered how the trash even knew his name. But then Ravel, without waiting for an answer, felt information about the great magical war between monsters and humans pouring into him. The gods could not let the human race lose, and so granted them special talents with which to defeat the monsters. The dark organizer of the monster attack enjoyed watching his victim and began to understand what exactly is the meaning of Ravel's life. Then the mysterious monster decided to tell his victim a very interesting story, even though this is not the best place for such conversations. All ordinary people need to know about their future is that this world is coming to an end, and it's time to give up all their dreams and desires. The dark monster announced the growing dispel magic, and with a single hand movement began to transfer its power to the monsters and direct their movements. Many adventurers didn't know what was happening because they had lost the ability to cast magic spells, and this simply couldn't be. At this moment, the monsters increased the pressure. As it turned out, the effect imposed by the dark monsters on all adventurers who had lost the ability to use their talents, and now they were on the verge of complete destruction. The increasing dispel magic continued to intensify and helped the monsters seize the initiative in this battle. The dark monster confessed that he had waited a long time for this moment when he could unleash all his magical energy accumulated over thousands of years. He then explained to Ravel that all the talents people are so proud of are just a curse. Anna at this moment also lost her talent and could no longer effectively control the dragon, which began to spin chaotically in the air. The girl tried her best to continue controlling the huge flying monster, but she couldn't do it. As a result, Anna lost her balance and was thrown from a height of several tens of meters. But at that moment, Q came to the rescue and saved Anna from a hard fall to the ground. The girl thanked the monster for his help. Then she asked why Q was here and when he had time to come to his senses. But the dragon realized that now is not the right place to talk and tried to attack the enemies. But suddenly Q and Anna were attacked by a huge flying monster that was much bigger than the dragon. But this time Anna was more confident in her strength and was able to fly next to the monster to give it a critical blow with her blade, and then return to Q's back. The dragon praised the girl for her lightning-fast reactions and excellent agility, and then suggested that they go together to find Ravel as soon as possible. Q admitted that now his memory had changed and he had learned many new things, so he must get something important back to his master as soon as possible. But to do that he must hurry before this whole city was destroyed. The terrible influence of the dark monster leader has made the adventurers panic, who now feel their vulnerability without being able to use their talents. But Sage Cult quickly realized that the ancient magic still worked, which meant that the enemy could only affect modern magical talents. All that remained was to figure out how this was possible. Sage Cult did not lose his concentration and vigilance even under such circumstances and decided to teach his opponent a lesson by all means. Meanwhile, Agito and Rero were hiding from a huge monster and the girl admitted that she had lost the ability to shoot, as she used to do it with her talent. Agito was furious at his powerlessness and didn't know how to get out of the death trap. Just at that moment, Q was circling above the city and trying to find Ravel. After a few minutes, the faithful pet saw his master who was blocked by black magic. Q instantly dropped down and attacked the monster leader with his fireball. Anna also wasted no time and rushed to attack the mysterious monster with her blade. But this strike had no effect on the enemy at all. Ravel tried to break free, but it was not easy. No one really knew how to defeat such a dangerous opponent and only Q hoped for his power. The dark leader of the monsters advised Ravel to use his wisdom and see how useless he was. But Q decided to use his power and silence the monster. The loyal pet swallowed the dark ringleader and was able to free Ravel. Q said that hard work always bears fruit, so you cannot despair even in critical situations, and he has one thing that he must return to his favorite master. As it turned out, the huge dragon wanted to give Ravel the memories of the past that can help him to know the future. But suddenly, the Dark Lord of Monsters reappeared and said that he had been waiting for this moment for years and no one could stop him. But the self-confidence of the dark monster only angered Ravel, who was furious at his insolence and guile. The industrious fellow struck with all his might where his face should have been. The blow turned out to be so strong that the monster go sideways and hit the wall. It was a manifestation of ancient magic that could not be destroyed by any forces. Ravel did not dwell on this success and continued to attack the horrible dark monster who was perplexed by what was happening. Many years ago, Ravel was resting peacefully when his buddy said that you need to treat everything responsibly, because every decision can have a variety of consequences. Also, one should not forget about how this whole world had already completely lost its balance, which meant that their important work was already completely over and now they needed to think about something else. Their important job was to carefully observe the different worlds. Thanks to this, they had to find the most suitable places to live. But unfortunately, this world was not an ideal place, because in it the strong ruled over the weak. There were many such unjust worlds, but among them there was one special one. This world was inhabited by humans, and although they were similar in appearance to the Divine Watchers, unfortunately they lived a very short life. The humans used sounds to hunt and were developing very quickly, and their territory was expanding rapidly. But it was obvious that in just a few hundred years, this unusual species of living creatures was doomed to complete extinction, and so it was not worth wasting time watching them. In fact, all divine creatures knew that to destroy any world is very easy, and it is enough just to affect the central core that lies deep in the center. This was the place where all life energy was concentrated. In this place the souls got after death, and all their memories and experiences were processed. This process is called reincarnation, and even the gods were not supposed to interfere in this process. But the Watchers were allowed to create new species in this core. These, through magical powers, were able to adapt to any environment. But their goal was to kill other species, and eventually they became known as monsters. After Ravel's observer partner had finished everything he wanted to do, he offered to return, because there was nothing more to do here. As a result, the observers entrusted the whole world to the monsters and went back to observe the next world and continued their work. And after those events, 1,000 years passed. But when the observers were again in this human world, they were very surprised by the results, because as it turned out, the wallpaper took precedence over other species and created a real civilization. All that happened so impressed the observers that they did not even understand how their calculations could be so wrong, and now they observed an incredible scene. Monsters that grew stronger after each reincarnation were used by humans as material, so they could avoid extinction. Humans learned a lot and now used the magical power that was supposed to stir their souls to the central core. Magic was a salvation for the humans. The observers did not understand what they should do with such an anomaly because people should not know such techniques and even less use them, as only divine observers can be responsible for the wisdom of this world. After analyzing the information, the observers found out that the wisdom of this world was greatly increased by an unknown method. But there was no time to realize all this. Wisdom is a special power of the Watchers that helps them to explore any worlds. Usually it contains knowledge of the ecosystem. But now the history of magic and architecture and metallurgy and medicine, and many other fields has surpassed all calculations. The observers did not understand how they could cope with such a serious problem, for they were powerless to stop evolution. After a bit of thinking, the observer Ravel decided to find out everything in detail and look closer. Of course, the observer knew the main rule that one should never interfere, but a strong curiosity made Ravel appear in the city among ordinary people. It was amazing that despite the presence of horrible monsters in this world, this place was incredibly developed and well appointed. Ravel marveled at people's ability to evolve. Most of all, the observer was surprised at the moment when he saw a little girl calmly playing with the monster. It seemed impossible, for monsters were only supposed to kill. The observer was able to quickly learn to speak human language and asked the girl how she could play with the bridge. But the girl only apologized and asked the stranger not to kill her favorite pet. The girl said that sometimes the monster can be annoying and sometimes hurts her, but he definitely doesn't mean any harm and is just playing. So they enjoy playing, eating and socializing together. The girl, hugging her pet, promised to work hard so that eventually the little monster could become a member of her family. Watcher Ravel was amazed by the child's words, and this meeting with the cheerful girl was a turning point in his life. Thanks to old memories, Ravel recalled the moment when he interacted with the little girl. She was eating a delicious bun with jam and telling him about how to do it properly. The girl was also happy to communicate with a strange man who seemed very kind and interesting to her. She, together with her pet, always found new stories and told them with pleasure. Originally in this world there was a person who created this world. One developed a method to make similar measures without stopping, and as a result there were hundreds of trillions of worlds. But at some point these worlds began to collapse and the immortal being didn't like it. The goddess began to feel a void in her soul because of it, and it seemed that her actions had no sense. The goddess really wanted that among all these worlds there was at least one that would not disappear. But with so many worlds, it would take hundreds of years to observe each one. So the goddess created special observers for this purpose. Their job was to keep an eye out and find what was habitable. The observers knew that in case of their failure they could not count on forgiveness, and so they were obliged to report everything to the goddess. In the end, the goddess learned of a world that continued to evolve thanks to hard-working people, and that this world was well suited for more visionary purposes. The Watchers still didn't understand how exactly this happened. After all, they even summoned magical beasts to this world, and maybe they misunderstood everything initially. The Watchers were created to observe and judge, but they still made mistakes. And if that's the case, then the whole point of their existence becomes incomprehensible. The Watchers decided that perhaps this time they had reached the wrong verdict. But it was strange because in this world even magical beasts have integrated into the life cycle. And if there were no signs of destruction, perhaps the goddess would be pleased with the result. But alas, this would not compensate for the fact that they had reached the wrong verdict as observers, and it was unknown whether they would be able to continue to observe this place and remain observers at all. But Ravel's partner reminded him that observers should never be wrong, and there should be no evidence of that. After that, the observer simply disappeared. After that, the humans were attacked by a huge angry monster and no one could deal with it. A huge number of hunters tried to contain the monster, but all groups were mercilessly destroyed. But eventually salvation came from a stranger who called himself Ravel. This young man was able to single-handedly defeat the monster and showed incredible skill with a blade. But Ravel broke a rule that prevented the Watchers from interfering with life. And when that happened, the Watchers had to become part of the world. And even though Ravel became a living being, he could still use his magical powers. But of course there were irreparable changes within him. The precious immortality was gone and Ravel felt different, for now his new body could age and die like all the inhabitants of this human world. But the way the little girl sincerely thanked Ravel for saving her life, and the life of her father, made the observer think about his choice. Now Ravel could no longer worry, because he realized his new purpose, which was to protect this world from any danger. Ravel decided to fight monsters from now on, and soon the so-called magical war began. Soon Anna returned and reported that she felt a strong magical energy. The girl disliked fighting most of all, but in this situation only she could produce aerial reconnaissance. And of course she had a lot of fun flying with Q. Anna loved the benevolent dragon very much, and their incredible bond was hard to ignore. It seemed that even in the next life they would be flying together. Suddenly Ravel touched the girl's head and surprised her. Anna felt something incredible, and the boy explained that it was just a blessing. Ravel wished that Anna would learn to fly a dragon in her next life, and as a result she would get the talent of Dragon Rider. Such news pleased Anna, and she was happy to have such an incredible talent in her next life. Ravel was pleased, for he loved to hear the girl's laughter. Ravel remembered that observers were only supposed to observe and judge, and was always searching for the true meaning of life. He asked the girl why she lived at all. After a little thought, the girl admitted that she had never really thought about it and didn't understand why she should think about it and worry about it at all. Such a simple and sincere answer of the girl made Ravel laugh and feel relieved, and then he suggested to go and finally end this terrible war. Ravel of course knew who exactly started this war and where this culprit might be, but all attempts to save people and end this war were deadly. Eventually Ravel got to the right place and was able to do what he wanted. His defeated opponent only grinned at the intense pain and admitted that there was nothing he could do now. Ravel tried to find out what happened to the infinite magical power that the goddess had given him, because it could not be completely used up even to create strong magical monsters, so his partner the Watcher had thought of something else. But the defeated Watcher continued to laugh and said that humanity continues to resist, and so he must steal the effort. And humans are just creatures that grow from their own mistakes, and so humans must lose in order to grow stronger in the end. And in 1,000 years people will start to rely on divine help and forget about their efforts, and then Ravel will die. But perhaps until then, the great magical war will be repeated more than once. Ravel was furious and did not realize that there was no other way but annihilation. And none of this would make up for the fact that they had made a mistake in their calculations and observations. But Ravel's partner still laughed and reminded him that he had no talents, but only an observer born to watch and judge, and so he has only one opportunity for error. Then Ravel's partner was able to gather all his strength and attacked with magic blows the girl who could not resist magic. This dastardly deed stunned Ravel, who rushed to the aid of the badly wounded girl. But her young body was quickly losing vitality and becoming weak. Ravel realized how wrong he had been, for he had been too rash. But despite the critical situation, there had to be some way out of it. The dying girl reminded Ravel of many things she had told him over the years, but there were still things she had never said. In a trembling, weakening voice, the girl confessed her feelings and called Ravel the most beautiful man. It seemed to her that if she said it she would feel better, and perhaps she did when she closed her eyes. Ravel, feeling the unbearable pain, decided to protect this world in spite of God and observers, and even if in the next life he will have to do it again. The most important thing is that this girl will be there for him. Although Ravel didn't really know what would happen after his death, and maybe this world would be simply destroyed, Ravel decided to ask Q for a favor in this case. As a result of the great magical war, people won and earned a gift from above, which was represented as talents. Each person at the age of 12 became unique and received a talent. Years later, the terrible war began to be forgotten, and the new inhabitants of this world enjoyed peace. The children were happy and joyful, but one of them was different in his behavior. The boy did not pay attention to the other children, and he only cared about learning useful knowledge. And he didn't need friends who always distract him. But the children still tried to distract him and offered to play. One sweet little girl had recently come to this place and wanted to find new companionship. But little Ravel advised not to mess with him because he was considered a monster. But the girl did not pay attention to this and still offered friendship. That was the moment when the newly born Ravel met his favorite girl from his past life, and now her name was Anna. But in real time, a terrible battle with a dangerous enemy was going on, and Anna along with Ravel were by his side. The monster realized that thanks to the magic of sensation, Ravel gave the dragon all his knowledge and magical power, and was able to transfer them to the next life. Many years had passed since Q had become the keeper of Ravel's memories and magical power. During this time, people had been able to master unique talents and had built huge temples. But it was unknown if people could stand on their own feet even when their talents didn't work, because it would take many hundreds of years. The government was usurped by people with strong talents, and the owners of weak talents were discriminated against. And after another few hundred years, only a small group of people still had a negative attitude towards talents. They were considered renegades and banished from the royal capital. These people found the ancient labyrinth. Thus a great deal of time passed, and Q didn't remember what exactly he was supposed to do and strived only to survive in this harsh and unfair world. But in a critical situation when Q was on the verge of death, he remembered that he had to exist for the sake of one man and returned to him what he had kept for hundreds of years. Meanwhile, the dark monster continued to actively fight and declared the end of this world, and Ravel called only a man who was able to return his power. But lost his talents, people will never be able to defeat magical monsters. But Ravel, of course, was not going to give up even in such a difficult situation and attacked his opponent with a strong blow. Ravel promised the monster to show his mistake. After all, the main thing that the dark monster was wrong about was that he doesn't understand people and considers them weak without magical talents. Meanwhile, Levis was thinking about what happened on the ruins of his elite academy. And now that everyone has been stripped of their talents, all sense of existence is gone, and he looks like an idiot. But unlike the head of the elite academy, Captain Isaac did not lose his composure and continued to fight and still destroyed monsters with his blade. Levis admitted that he never thought that the day would come when the Dragon Knights would fall and could no longer be great fighters. But Isaac that now the situation was too tense and the Royal Knights had lost their will to fight and were offering no resistance. This news saddened Levis, although he himself was not going to fight anymore. But the brave Captain Isaac was not going to follow Levis' example and grabbed the head of the academy by the arm and asked him to immediately repeat his foolish words that a true adventurer leader can't utter. Isaac decided to boost his comrade's motivation and reminded him how Levis bravely fought high-level monsters and conquered dangerous labyrinths where even the best knights were defeated. Therefore, all adventurers are worthy of respect because they fought honorably and protected people from monsters. Levis was surprised by such kind words and asked the knight if he was praising him for his long years of acquaintance. In the end, Levis was able to believe in his own strength again and encouraged the desperate adventurers to keep fighting despite the lost talents. After all, even if they have even the slightest chance of victory, they must take advantage of it. Moreover, the adventurers should not stop their mission as long as they could stand on their feet. Meanwhile, in the streets of the city continued to actively destroy all living things huge Hydra, which adventurers tried to trap and they succeeded. Several powerful explosions collapsed buildings and crushed the terrible monster deprived him. This was the moment Agito had been waiting for, and now he was ready to act. At the head of a team of adventurers, Agito instantly attacked the horrible monster and ordered his comrades to do everything to destroy the Hydra and they might not get another chance. Everyone realized what a crucial moment they had to cross and strove to do their best to gain victory and remedy their desperate situation. But unfortunately for the adventurers, the huge Hydra was able to use a magical membrane and escaped from the death trap, continuing to attack everyone around it. This shocked the squad and many gave up to escape to save their lives. But unlike the rest of the adventurers, Agito didn't run away and stayed behind to save Ira. Agito realized that it was very difficult to use ultimatum power in such a manner, and he probably lost the rookie tournament because of it. Meanwhile, the headless monster continued to destroy the resistance of the adventurers who were desperately trying to advance and liberate another city street. Everyone was shocked by the sheer force they faced and didn't know how much longer they could fight. The knights, of course, relied on their physical strength and skill with the blade, but the adventurers hoped for the magical energy they still had and tried to turn the tide of the battle. The sage cult was able to learn the secrets of ancient magic and help the other adventurers feel its power. Even without seeing their faces, he could sense their states, and now he had to help them all. Cult believed that the fire magic he used in the dangerous dungeon was the pinnacle of his magical prowess. But that didn't stop him from exploring new possibilities. We here always wanted to get better. In his lonely journey to explore the depths of mysterious magic, Colt never thought of bestowing magic on his companions, for it was ultimatum magic that he wanted to wield himself. Such magic da roll talent to use absolutely any magic and use it as a source of great energy, and so right now my run tried to simulate divine power and endow the other adventurers with it. But in any case, his intentions were good, for they all together had to rid this world of evil as soon as possible. Instantly, each of the adventurers received a new ability, whether it was a hurricane, flame, or magical ice arrow. Sage Cult, of course, saw the main goal and sought to hit his opponent as accurately as possible, because then he could call himself in the future the savior of mankind. But the mysterious headless adversary was certainly not in agreement with these plans and struck his palms and destroyed the stone bridge leading to another part of the city. A huge amount of heavy stones fell on the adventurers like heavenly rain and forced them to retreat back. But Colt was not going to lose the opportunity and waited for the right moment. As it turned out, the cunning girl Lar was also not left out of this deadly battle and helped the wounded to get to safety. Colt didn't understand why the girl from the trade association was here, but Lar told him to shut up. The girl was trying to find out how badly the sage was hurt and if he had any remnants of magic power. But Colt kept telling Lar to get away, because this place was not suitable for her. But the brave Lar was not going to listen to these words and took out an extremely pure potion of magical recovery from her inventory, and then offered the sage to drink it immediately, as it loses its properties very quickly when it is out of inventory. Sage Colt was shocked that a woman who hated everything magical could somehow learn how to use the magical storage. But Lar only laughed in response and admitted that learning magic was a real torment for her. Still, she was able to learn this ability thanks to Ravel. Why the girl noticed that Colt's condition had improved, but her magical powers were almost gone. Lar asked to give her a vial of elixir, but as it turned out, the sage drank it all to the end. The battle in the city did not stop for a second, but now the Dark Lord of the Monsters began to realize that his attempts to destroy the humans had failed and the monsters had been thrown back. Ravel advised his opponent to recognize that humans are not so weak even after losing the Great Magical War, because they learn from their mistakes. Humans are capable of recognizing their weakness and becoming stronger as a result. Eventually, humans took a long time to reflect on their mistakes, to examine them and realize that together they could be stronger. It was called the evolution of consciousness, which is how humanity evolved. Ravel decided to teach his opponent a lesson and prove to him how strong and purposeful people can be, and each of them is a unique person. After all, altogether people are very hardworking beings in this world and can achieve even the most difficult goals. That is why all those who can only destroy and annihilate hate people who are capable of much more. Ravel, striking his opponent with powerful blows, confessed his sincere love for people. The Dark Man said that he didn't really have a chance of winning, because he only has a fraction of the Watcher's power. But Ravel, being in the Observer's style, would still not be able to defeat him. After all, his observer's body has been reincarnated somewhere, and when he gets it, everything will change. Ravel will no longer be able to fight and will never win, because then it will be possible to get full power in life in which everyone follows the talent, and people will realize how vulnerable they are in this world will accept their defeat. But Ravel disagreed, because when an observer interferes in human life, he becomes part of it. That's why he trusted his power to Q and got trapped, and the Watcher's power and the body part that disappeared that day. He was reborn as a human being. Ravel explained that he was able to become close friends with this man, and his power was reborn into the body of the Watcher cult, who is gradually learning all that he can do. As a human, he does not use his power for his own selfish purposes, and even if he has to turn from the right path, he does not want to destroy the world, because he is part of humanity. These words made Ravel's former comrade in arms realize a lot, because now after many years they must hate each other and keep fighting until someone completely wins. While all the adventurers and knights fought bravely under the leadership of the sage cult, Ravel felt familiar feelings. It was as if he had been transported to a completely different place. Once again he appeared before the goddess, who was pleased that the boy remembered everything that was important in his past life. Ravel really now realized that he had received his talent not from the observer cult, but from her. The goddess confirmed this assumption, then told him that she had made sure that Lar met him, and then introduced him to Q, who had the Watcher's power. The goddess also ordered Colt to facilitate Ravel so that they would meet in another form in the future, and it was a very cunning and far-sighted plan. And when Anna was in mortal danger, the reincarnation of another girl should have moved her to the safe place, but moved Ravel and Q because her goal was to become the Watcher and regain her power. The goddess agreed and reminded them that Ravel had been able to defeat the Manticore without the help of a Watcher, but that a normal person would never do such a thing. Ravel asked to answer one important question: why he is a Watcher who broke the most important rules and stuck in a cyclical life was able to get this far and learn the most powerful magical abilities. Now there was a great opportunity to separate from his old self and never be one again, because he had to move forward. The goddess reminded that the Watcher must be perfect in all its manifestations, but one unique one was born among them that changed everything. This Watcher forgets observation and adds humor and drama in return. He may be called inferior, but another observer objected to the goddess who created him and wanted to erase the inferior from history. And now everyone must realize that the world they watched so carefully was created, and it was because of them. For this imperfect world was born by an imperfect observer and became unique. Eventually, this human world became interesting and greatly inverted divine expectations and allowed for good fun studying and observing the development of humans. But now Ravel's power is fully restored, and he must decide if he wants to become an observer again or stay in this human world with his friends. Ravel, the Watcher, explains that this world doesn't need his power anymore and he doesn't know anyone there, but the other Ravel has made many friends in this world. and if you stay in this world, you will lose all your power and you will no longer be able to use your wisdom. The reborn Ravel replied that even without the Watcher's power and wisdom, he could become stronger with his great talent of diligence, so he doesn't regret his choice. He had already found the only knowledge he needed in Ravel's memories and was grateful to him for being able to pass it on through time. Thanks to a fragment of the dragon's magical power, Q was able to transmit the memories and great magical power, but this fragment is now a danger. The goddess laughed at this point and agreed, for with this fragment, the demon can come back to life, and the only thing he wants is to completely destroy the human world. The reborn Ravel thanked for his past memories and strength, but reminded that the central core was on the 1000th, and even the highest ranked adventurer could only go 200 floors. But Ravel, despite such a difficult task, was ready to complete it successfully because humans are the most diligent creatures in this world. The other decided to go back to his job as an observer. The goddess decided to provide them with a new partner. Then the goddess told how she brought back the soul that had died near the central core, because the imperfect observer who would never change would now have the opportunity for life. 2 years later, Lar learned that the path that supplies the army could be shortened. And then the girl was surprised to receive a letter from the sage cult. Everyone watched in amazement as she carefully unfolded the letter and tried to read the message, which was about the Hero Academy. But Lar, of course, considered herself a merchant and never wanted to change her way of life, because even in this image she will be able to influence the most courageous heroes and now must proceed to negotiations with the king's envoy. Finding themselves in the Elite Heroes Academy, Agito and Rero were delighted by its magnificent design and huge size. Although the heroes were struggling with the loss of their talents, the place still held many amazing things. Many people want to enter this place despite their lack of talents, and it's strange to think of those who were able to pass the exam without any abilities. But Agito advised his friend not to think about it because they were able to do it themselves. Especially in this place there were magic lovers like Cult. And in any case, one should be proud of their opportunity to study at this academy, and if you put enough effort, you can become the strongest. And of course, by working together, friends can accomplish feats much better than the previous heroes. Agito asked who had accomplished the feat before, and it turned out he'd just disappeared into oblivion. Colt advised not to look back to the past, because there is nothing to be done about it, and he personally does not like large crowds of people. Meanwhile, cheerful Anna was teaching the newcomers and explained that even without talent they will be able to ride a dragon, because the main thing is to try and want it. It is also necessary to realize that the most important thing in this case to be confident, because the dragon is also afraid of people, so you need to act slowly and carefully in order to eventually become a real friend to the monsters. Of course, Captain Isaac, who was now a teacher at the academy. Isaac told that the Knights of the Red Dragon had been destroyed and now Anna could be the key in the battle against the Empire that was now over the sea. But the girl just wanted to be a knight and fly a dragon. Especially in this country, there are much stronger people who are constantly striving to become even stronger. Teacher Isaac thought about the girl's words and realized that she was right about something. Just at that moment, her favorite guy Ravel appeared behind her with his pet and said hello to the girl for whom he had come a long and hard way, as if nothing had happened. Ravel asked Anna if she remembered their old promises, when they confessed their feelings for each other and decided to postpone their reunion for 3 years. Of course, the girl remembered every word she said to her beloved and now, plunged into the embrace, she heard again how much Ravel loved her, which means they could achieve the most important thing and be together forever.